This guy's body looks like a skeleton because he's immortal, and everyone treated him like a monster. But why? How could a monster be this gentle with dogs? One day, this girl went into an alley to bring food to the dogs, but 3 guys were standing next to her, giving her that look. She was too beautiful to walk past unnoticed, and they started saying things with clear bad intentions. That's when this immortal guy who lived in the alleys with the dogs heard everything and walked over. The moment those guys saw his face, they ran off with their tails between their legs. It was a monster after all. When the girl saw his face, she panicked too and ran, but a little further away she stopped and thought, this guy just saved me, I can't act like this. So she went back, thanked him, and told him what she had was better than dog food anyway. She started petting the dogs. The immortal boy thought this girl had to be an angel. That's because, since he was 7 years old, when they discovered his body couldn't die, Kim Jio had been locked up in a lab where they ran every kind of experiment on him that's not supposed to be done on a human being. Even that hydraulic press video. Here's the reason behind all of it. In this world, there are rare cases of people born with a mutant heart, and they gain powers because of it. Kim Jio has the immortal heart, and he's unable to truly die. He managed to escape the lab 3 years ago. When he was about to get caught again, he chose to die rather than lose his life a second time, so he grabbed a high-voltage wire and killed himself along with the 2 men chasing him. But they forgot one thing. Only Jio is immortal. He doesn't die, but his body only fully heals when he eats a lot. So he spent 3 years living like a homeless man, running from everyone. The girl's name is Heji Song. Even though she was terrified by Jio's past, she decided to help him. She said she had a way to stop people from being scared of him. Of course, along the way, Jio's arm actually fell off, since his body was still too weak. Even after that scare, Heiji brought him new clothes and even did his makeup. She promised she'd come back the next day, too. After all those years, Jio had only ever been seen as a lab experiment or a monster. For the first time, his mutant heart felt a different kind of warmth, and it beat hard. What could that be? But that night, he remembered the lab had been after him for years, and Hyeji would be in danger if she stayed close to him. So the boy ran all night long, as far away as he could get. The next day, one of the dogs followed him without him noticing. And the girl was there too, exhausted after spending hours and hours looking for Jio. She brought food for the dogs, and for him as well, this time something even better. When he ate something that good, Jio's arm started growing back fast. It was a huge shock, but she quickly asks if it is normal for the healing to be so slow. Jio answers that it would take years for his body to return to normal like that. That is, if he only eats regular food, and the girl immediately asks if there is another way to speed up the process. The protagonist considers saying that drinking a lot of blood would solve the problem, but decides it is best to keep that to himself. So he lies that rapid healing would only be possible in the laboratory, and says that eating well is enough for now. The girl asks if the laboratory healed him on purpose, and Jio confirms it, saying they did that to continue their experiments. And that is why those men relentlessly hunt him everywhere. The girl understands the situation and asks if that was why he tried to run away alone. He confirms that if she gets involved, she will also be in danger. Hyeji stands up and tells him they should go to the police station right now. He explains that even if he goes now, he will be treated like a monster and might even get shot. Hyeji tells him not to worry about that because her older sister is a police officer. She also reveals that her sister is a heart mutant exactly like him. Jio reacts with surprise to the information, but he hesitates and thinks for a few seconds. Hyeji asks him to just trust her because her sister is truly a good person. He watches the girl talking to the dogs. She tells the animals they will be fine because the shelter will contact them soon. Potato keeps salivating while barking at the protagonist. Jio crouches down and pets the dog, noting that he ended up receiving help again, and thanks him. This time, he guarantees he will not run away like a coward and promises to come back to see the animal again. This is the first time Jio experiences something like this. After being hunted for 3 years, someone finally reaches out to him first. He realizes it is a strange feeling to have someone to help him. He wonders if he can finally live without running away, but a black car approaches. The blinding light leaves the protagonist completely disoriented. Hyeji just looks back in fear. She watches Jio get hit head-on by the car. The boy slams his head hard against the ground. One of the guards grabs Hyeji and orders them to hurry and get that bastard before other people arrive. They approach holding several baseball bats. They grab Jio with dozens of hands and immobilize him. A man lights a cigarette and comments that he finally found that cursed skeleton. He says they should take the boy and make him pay for everything they went through. The cars speed off and drive far away from there. Jio is tied up with a rope while they drive. He thinks about how much this situation sucks. He uses his fingers to try to break free. Everything happened because of him. Even Hyeji ended up getting taken by the guys. Suddenly, the protagonist loses his balance and falls. He feels that with that trash ability, he cannot do anything. He calls out for help, hoping for someone to come, until the dogs appear leaping toward the car. They charge full of rage and start biting the rope. They manage to break the rope with some difficulty. The car stops, and the group turns to see what happened. The dogs bark at the men. The guys open the doors right after. They walk menacingly toward the protagonist. One of them mocks them and asks if those mutts went crazy since it was not even feeding time. Gio continues suffering from the pain while looking at the dogs. Those thugs start striking the animals with baseball bats. The protagonist tries to stand up, seeing that the dogs are fighting in his place. He knows he needs to do something fast. The dogs are getting beaten and hurt because of him. He then approaches the blood spilled on the ground. He thinks that if he absorbs it, he will be able to regenerate his body. He tries to drag himself there. Meanwhile, the thugs kill every single one of the dogs. Gio notices a body right in front of him. Rage takes over his soul. Potato is dead. The same thing has happened to all the dogs around him. He thinks about how he spent 10 years in that. He became a laboratory toy for 10 years. Every morning is the same routine when he opens his eyes. They inject blood and rip out his organs every single day without stopping. He wants to die and cannot even do that. He plans to escape and somehow manages it. He thinks he will finally be happy out there. But people only treat him like trash. Everyone thinks he is a monster. However, the heart in his chest begins to glow. Kyeji and the dogs never abandon him. They treat him like a normal person. All the blood spilled on the ground starts moving toward him. The blood approaches very fast and covers his body like a whirlpool. From his feet to his arms, he returns to a human form. Gio's body recovers from top to bottom, and finally his face. He looks around right after. He realizes that his body has completely returned to normal. Blood flows freely, just like when he was a child. He says that this cannot be true, that this is the effect of the blood of the dogs. The thugs start to wonder what they should do. One of the guys charges at him, saying they just need to grab him. But Gio punches him in the face and destroys the guy instantly. The thug flies far and crashes into a car. His face is buried in the metalwork. Gio hugs his dead dog. He says he knows the most painful way to die, and he warns that he will only spare whoever tells him where they took Hyeji, in an abandoned place full of cars. They pull the bag off Hyeji's head. The girl asks who they are, but when she looks to the side, the place is full of thugs. And next to her is something much worse. The bodies of a bunch of dead people. The gang boss grabs her head and says she makes too much noise, and asks how many lives she thinks she has. He says that if she wants to blame anyone, she has to blame the skeleton since she screwed herself trying to help him. Then he warns that she needs to shut her mouth if she does not want to die. After all, nobody there cares if 1 or 2 people lose their lives. Out of nowhere, the man's phone starts vibrating. He stands up and wants to know why the guy is calling instead of showing up. The guy on the other end summarizes everything that happened earlier. The boss asks what he is talking about. Hyeji wonders if the dogs went to help. The thug says he lost the skeleton. This leaves the boss completely enraged. He throws the phone on the ground and warns that if they do not catch the skeleton again, the subordinate is the one who will lose his life. He grabs Hyeji and asks where the skeleton went. He orders her to tell him what she knows right now, but the girl says she knows nothing. The man asks if she will still know nothing even after getting a few holes in her body. Hyeji thinks that the guy was being chased, and she acted like an idiot. She wonders what she should do now, but a subordinate goes flying past him from behind. The gangster looks back instantly. He sees the boy standing in the doorway. He is very surprised. He asks who this boy is. Another gangster wonders the same thing since the guy just looks like a beggar, but Gio grabs his neck. The man does not understand where all this strength comes from. Gio says that because of them. The dogs lost their lives. The other guys charge quickly towards him. They land a punch on Gio's face. The boy just spits out a little blood. He retaliates with a punch to the gangster. The blow sends the guy flying away. Another guy manages to grab Gio from behind. He lands several strikes on the boy's back, but Gio does not even care. He uses his own strength to crush the guy in front and throw the one behind him to the ground. Everyone is amazed by this strength. Meanwhile, Gio asks if they are the guys that the Hermes lab sent. Hyeji thinks there is no way. That boy is the real Gio. The boss grabs her hair and says the kid is the skeleton. He remembers the guys saying the skeleton would be unrecognizable if he regenerated, and he really almost missed it. Then he shoots Gio in the shoulder. The gangster thanks him for crawling all the way there on his own. He shouts for the guys to grab all the weapons they received as payment. They all start shooting at the boy. He says that if they catch this guy, they will make a lot of money, so they must shoot non-stop so he cannot regenerate. The gunfire continues without stopping for even a second. Gio feels the pain take over. His flesh is tearing apart, and his bones are breaking again. His lungs must have torn and he cannot even breathe properly. Hyeji screams for them to stop, but Gio falls to the ground. He begins to pant heavily, but he digs his fingers into the ground. Blood begins to wrap around his body. It is the blood of the people who lost their lives there. This makes his heart beat strongly once again. One of the henchmen calls out to the boss. He warns that the boy is coming back to life. Gio rises from the ground like a zombie. until he finally stands up. The men keep shooting without understanding what is happening. Gio can feel every bullet piercing his body. They explode and tear through his flesh. Even so, his body continues to recover, and the pain repeats itself. But it does not hurt as much as he imagined, at least not compared to everything he has already suffered. He remembers all the experiments he went through. He was even crushed back then. What Gio suffered for years was far worse. Then he strikes one of the shooters in the face. The man flies away from the impact. Gio says that shots from normal guns are nothing. He says he can endure this for as long as it takes. The thugs realize he is floating in the air. Gio lands a blow on the arm of another henchman. He shatters the bones of the man instantly. The man is thrown far away. A third turns around completely confused, but they are all defeated at an absurd speed. Gio does not stop for a single second. What makes him angry is remembering that those pure beings died to protect him. Another subordinate is sent flying backward. Gio gets closer and closer to the boss, who tells him to back off. The boss threatens to shoot the girl if he takes another step, but Gio lands a direct punch to his face. He thinks that what hurts the most in the end is knowing he will never see his friends again. The boss is thrown and breaks the wall with his back. When the man opens his eyes, he is even more terrified. He begs for help and promises to do whatever Gio says, but Gio replies that it is too late now. He smashes the head of the boss into the ground. The man has his face completely crushed. That is not enough, and Gio strikes again. He repeats the same strike dozens of times. He punches thousands of times in a matter of seconds. The man ends up with his face completely disfigured. In the end, Gio stands up with bloody fists. He finally finishes his revenge. A sea of bodies lies around him. He breathes heavily, looking at it all. Hyeji calls out Gio's name. He calmly walks up to her. She asks if he is okay after taking so many bullets, but he hugs the girl and says, "This is really good. After all, she is still alive. The dogs saved him and lost their lives, but he was so terrified she would meet the same fate, so he gives thanks that she is alive." Hyeji asks why he is thanking her, and hugs him back. She says that she is actually the one who is very grateful. Later, the police handle everything at the scene. They arrest the gang leader and claim it was their own internal fight. From afar, they both watch everything, and Hyeji comments on the arrests. Gio asks if it is okay for them to stay out of the investigation. The girl replies that her sister told them not to get involved for now. She says her sister will handle everything and that they can leave. Hyeji starts crying uncontrollably, and Gio cries too. He looks at the dogs' bodies and apologizes. He says the name of each one of them. Hyeji says it is her fault because they came to try to save her. She says she could not even take care of them properly and only gave them a little food and affection. Gio bites his own finger and says they died to give him blood. The girl asks what he is doing. He explains that he can heal himself with blood and hopes his blood can resurrect the animals. Blood starts dripping from his finger, but the cut closes quickly. Gio keeps biting his finger, not understanding why the healing is so fast. He forces it to bleed even more. Hyeji begs him to stop because it will only make the dogs sadder. He says they lost their lives because of him and must hate him now. But the girl says they really liked him. She says they did not trust people, but they liked Gio. They are badly hurt dogs with bad memories of humans. Gio says he did not know that and thought they were just docile. The girl says if he gets hurt and blames himself, they will also suffer. He looks down and hugs Potato Body. The girl says they approached him without any fear, all because they felt he was in the same situation as them. He says thank you for hearing that, but they hear barking right behind them. It is Potato Puppy. Hyeji says she was worried about him and is relieved he is alive. The puppy walks up to Gio. He stands still looking at the boy. Gio asks if the puppy is not angry at him since his father and friends died because of him, but the dog licks his hand. Hyeji comments that the puppy also likes him, and so it ends up sleeping in the arms of Gio. The girl does not quite know what to do. She knows she cannot leave a newborn puppy alone on the street. She also realizes that those men from the lab did not seem like ordinary people, and Gio needs a safe place. So she announces that she is going to call her sister. She says she followed the plan they had agreed on, and her sister handles the rest over the phone. After that, Hyeji takes them both to her house. It is a massive apartment right in the center of the city. She tells Gio to make himself at home. He asks if he can really enter her home. He knows he is a dangerous person and does not want to cause trouble. But Hyeji replies that he risked his own life to protect her. She explains that her sister also really wants to meet him. Her sister is investigating a case connected to the laboratory and needs help. Ultimately, everything is fine and he can come in. Gio stops and looks at himself in a mirror in the living room. He is completely shocked by what he sees. He notices that he now has normal cheeks, a normal nose, and normal lips. His face has finally returned to how it was before. Since childhood, his face had never regenerated properly. At the laboratory, the healing was very slow, and they always ran more experiments before he could recover. Then he discovers that this is what he actually looks like. The girl remarks that things get more shocking the more he speaks. She confesses that something has been bothering her since earlier. After regenerating, he does not look like an older man at all. She asks how old he is. Gio says it has been a long time since he thought about that. He does some quick math with his fingers years, and he answers that he is 17 years old. Hyeji mentions that is her exact age. She wants to know why he stayed quiet while she called him sir the entire time. Gio explains that he did not mind because just being addressed as a human being already made him happy. The girl is deeply moved by this answer. She finds the situation sad and cute at the same time. From now on, they agree to just use their first names in a more casual way. On the floor, Potato eats his food with the greatest joy in the world. Gio does the same thing with the human food on the table. He says aloud that the food is delicious. Hyeji apologizes and says she does not know how to cook very well, but Gio disagrees immediately. He assures her it is the best food he has tasted in many years. Hyeji announces that her sister will not be able to come because she is probably busy with work. When the plates are finally empty, she starts clearing things away. She points to the couch and tells him he will sleep there for today, and she hands him a thick blanket to keep warm. Then she says she has homework to do and goes straight to her room. Gio is left alone in the middle of the living room. He looks from side to side, admiring the place. He stares at the television and wonders if every thin screen is gigantic like that. He notes that even the flowers in the house are very different from the ones he saw at the laboratory. He sits down and realizes the couch is extremely soft. It is much more comfortable than the hard bed where he used to sleep. In the corner, the puppy remains focused on the food. But suddenly the dog chokes a bit on the food. The noise catches the attention of Gio. He sees the little dog coughing endlessly. He immediately calls out to Potato in a panic, and he runs fast toward the puppy. But the dog swallows the food and goes right back to chewing as if nothing happened. The dog does not understand his fuss. Gio smiles when he sees it as nothing serious. Then they lie down on the couch to sleep. He mentions that the place is very cozy. Gio asks if the little guy likes it there too. He thinks of a name and notes that the dog is Potato Puppy, so he suggests the name Fry. The dog just closes his eyes. Gio thinks this is what they call happiness. He ate delicious food, he managed to take a hot bath, and he can even sleep in a soft place. But he knows this could end at any moment. He remembers the past when he escaped with other mutants. Back then, the others warn him that the exit is nearby. The soldiers notice they are high-level mutants and say they cannot let anyone escape. Then they cause an explosion that throws the mutants far away. Some of them end up crushed by the rocks. Meanwhile, one of the soldiers points a hand cannon and fires at the group, but the soldiers are surprised when the attack fails. A girl manages to block everything with ice walls. She screams for Gio to wake up. Another mutant reaches out to him and blocks the passage with rocks. The two look at each other with determination. The girl tells him to run because the exit is right there. They escape with great difficulty, but in the end they get separated. He thinks she might be suffering somewhere right now. That is why he swore to never let anything be taken from him again, not even this little piece he found. If anyone tries to steal this again, Gio will not forgive them under any circumstances. But the next day, a scream echoes through the house. He runs at top speed and screams for Fry. He wants to know where the dog went. A while before, Hyeji warns she's going to school and will be back soon. She also says her sister arrives at night and asks him to look after the house. After all, she has a lot of work to do. Gio understands and wishes her a good class, imagining that school must be cool. At that moment, Fry begins to scratch the door. The girl finds the dog behavior strange. She says he does not seem to be in pain and must be bored, wanting to go out too. Gio asks if she wants him to take the dog for a walk. Hyeji asks if it is not dangerous since those people could chase him again, but he guarantees everything is fine and says no one will recognize his recovered face. She thinks that is great. She just reminds him to put a leash on the dog before leaving. Later, he walks with Twigim rolling on the ground. He asks if the collar is too uncomfortable, and he wonders if he tightened the thing around his neck too much. He wonders if it hurts because he used to wear something very similar in the past. It was a collar that burned his entire body, but there is no other way because people might complain about a loose dog around here. Except Twigim suddenly disappears in the middle of all this. He panics right away, and all the previous scenes flash through his mind. The dog is completely fine having fun and walking around the city. Meanwhile, Gio runs everywhere begging for the animal to show up. He even searches inside the street trash cans, and he looks under cars to see if he's hiding. Then he digs through another trash can on the sidewalk. He racks his brain trying to figure out how to find Twigim. He wonders if the dog got into a car accident in the middle of the street, or if some bad person did something cruel to him. After all, he promised the night before that he would protect the animal from everything, until he notices something right in the middle of the court. Some people are playing soccer, and Twigim is just sitting calmly in the corner. He just sits there observing everything without doing anything else. Gio runs up to him and wonders if the dog caught her scent all the way over there, but a teacher ends up noticing his presence there. The man asks him to wait a moment and pay attention. However, before the teacher can finish speaking, the boy vanishes from sight. He heads straight toward the dog, ignoring everything else. The guys continue playing soccer peacefully, while the rest of the people go about their normal lives in the courtyard. Gio finds it funny to see everyone so cheerful in a place that is just a school, but one thing really catches his attention. Some kids mention that mutants started emerging from inside a laboratory, and a television program warns that reporting an illegal mutant yields an absurd amount amount of money as a reward. He quickly realizes that people have a very harsh view of mutants. He decides he needs to be very careful and grab Twigim to get out of there fast, but the dog decides to start walking far away. Nearby, a few girls are recording dancing videos on a phone. They comment that one of their friends looks perfect in the recording. The girl smiles and also praises her friend's beauty, but Twigim decides to approach their exact group. The girl bends down and hugs the dog, calling him cute. They quickly decide to film the animal to post online, but Geo ends up appearing right in the corner of their footage. The girls get a huge scare as he appears out of nowhere. He steps out from behind a tree and apologizes for the incident. He explains that he did not mean to scare anyone and just came to get the dog back. The three girls take a good look and think he is very handsome up close. By his uniform, they notice he seems to be new and want to find out who he is. Geo tenses up and immediately asks if he appeared on her phone. He warns them very seriously that he cannot appear in videos under any circumstances. But the girl ignores the tension, hands over her phone and asks for his social media. She says she wants to tag him in the video. The other girls comment that it is the first time they see her asking for someone's Instagram. The problem is that the protagonist does not even know what Instagram is. Minjung thinks he is totally her type and that his shy behavior is cute. Then he replies that he does not have that kind of thing. The girl is completely confused. He bows and says he appreciates the gesture. Her friends are shocked to see her get rejected. Minjung immediately gets annoyed that he is playing hard to get. At that moment, he picks the dog up. He apologizes to the animal and promises he will never lose sight of it again. From afar, a guy watches and gets really pissed off. He wonders who that kid is. Another boy comments that that is the girl Taegu likes and points out that the new kid is hitting on her using the dog. Taegu gets furious and wonders how this trash has the nerve to covet his girl, so he grabs the ball from one of his friends and prepares to kick it straight at the protagonist. He kicks the ball with massive force. It flies straight toward the new kid's face, but the protagonist just looks at the dog, which is still in his arms. He simply lets the ball smash right into his own face. The girls get scared and ask if he is okay, while blood starts dripping on the ground. Taegu fakes an apology and says the ball slipped by accident. Minjung complains that the ball almost hit her and asks how the new kid is doing, but he just tells Taegu to be more careful next time because his dog almost got hurt. Taegu starts laughing at the situation. He tells his friends to look at the new kid's stupid face and asks again if he is okay because the last guy who took a hit like that broke his nose. The protagonist repeats that everything is fine, but the dog almost got hurt. Taegu apologizes again and the boy says it is no problem and turns around to leave with the animal. Taegu orders his friends to find out who the new kid is because he did not like his face. The protagonist thinks about how terrified he was of losing his dog Fries, but thanks to the animal, he got to see the school and many kids his own age. He finds it all amusing and thinks that if he had attended school, maybe he would have made a lot of friends. Right after that, Taegu calls him back, apologizing for the ball strike from earlier. He says that since they are in the same year, they are now friends, and since the boy took the hit, just apologizing is not enough, so he announces he will buy him some bread. The protagonist wonders if the bread is tasty. Taegu swears it is delicious. The protagonist asks if they have something for the dog to eat too. Taegu makes up an excuse that he just wanted to show off in front of the girls and promises to buy plenty of bread, but as soon as they turn the corner, Taegu kicks the protagonist with everything he has. The other delinquents ask if he really brought the new kid all the way there. They laugh, saying the boy only went with them because they promised to buy bread. One of the bullies mentions that the boy seems a bit slow, but they laugh and say they will feed him bread until he chokes. Taegu raises his hand and calls him a coward. He demands to know why the boy was acting like he owned the place. Geo is confused and asks what he is talking about. Taegu yells that he was hitting on Min Jung and that he would go crying after the first punch. The other gang members start mocking him. Geo realizes he thought he was making friends, but it was just a trap to start trouble. So he turns around and apologizes, saying he will leave if he made anyone uncomfortable. But the guys block his path and ask where he thinks he is going. The protagonist tells them to get out of the way because his dog is scared. One of the thugs says the mutt is just like its owner and tries to punch him, but the protagonist sends the guy flying away with a single punch. The rest of the group cannot understand why their friend landed so far away. Taegu cannot believe what he just saw, since the boy barely moved his arm. The delinquents charge at him with everything they have. They scream and demand to know if he was really the one who threw their guy like that. The protagonist closes his eyes for a second. His mutant heart begins to glow. He takes down each of the attackers with absurd ease, and he charges straight at Taegu, readying a punch. He stops the strike a finger away from the guy's face. The impact pins the bully against the wall. He strikes the wall right above the boy's head. The protagonist warns again that he told them to stop because his dog was scared. The thugs try to call out to Taegu, but they lose their nerve and run far away. Taegu stares in terror at the wall cracking behind him. He knows that if he takes a punch like that, his bones will turn to dust. It becomes clear that he messed with the wrong guy. So he drops to his knees and begs for forgiveness. He even shows a picture of a dog he has at home to try and build empathy. The protagonist immediately thinks he is a nice guy, and Taegu keeps begging for mercy. Suddenly, the protagonist's stomach starts growling loudly. He mentions he got hungry because he used a little bit of strength. Taegu finds it bizarre for the guy to feel hungry out of nowhere in the middle of a fight. He concludes that the boy is pretending to forgive him while subtly demanding food. Soon after, they end up in the school cafeteria. The protagonist thanks him and says he will eat well. Taegu just watches everything from a distance. He sees the boy sharing his food with the dog. Taegu cannot understand what goes on in his head since the boy is a monster of strength, but acts like an idiot. Minutes ago, he sent a grown man flying through the air. Even for an athlete, it would be impossible to crack a wall like that, and he has never seen anything like it before. He decides he needs to take an extreme measure and calls his older brother. His brother answers and immediately asks what happened. Taegu asks if he can help out this time. Young Chul asks in annoyance if he got beaten up again since he was busy, but Taegu explains that the boy can truly fight and begs, saying it is his first and last request. And then he reveals that the target is that crybaby redhead everyone thinks is a loser. Another guy asks how well he fights and says he can go there and handle it. He explains that he needs to go near the school and that he will lure the target outside very quickly. Taegu thinks the guy is completely doomed now, but the protagonist offers him some food. He says he feels embarrassed to eat alone. Taegu tells him he can eat everything, and that he can do this multiple times. He keeps wondering how a guy like this can be so strong. He then starts to remember what happened earlier. The boy definitely injured his fist when he punched the wall, and now everything is perfectly normal. That absurd strength that makes people fly and the wounds that heal so fast catch his attention. Taegu remembers hearing that heart mutants can use very different abilities. He questions if the protagonist is part of that group. Gio asks where he got that idea. Taegu thinks he has never seen a real mutant, and that he looks exactly like an ordinary person. That would definitely be very dangerous. And even the brothers might end up getting hurt if they go there for nothing. He asks if he is really dealing with a heart mutant. Taegu confirms the situation and warns that it might be better to forget everything because it is too dangerous. But Young Chul says that is incredible and that they will definitely handle the guy, so he asks him to hold the fort. The protagonist announces he has finished eating and is leaving. Taegu warns that there is still plenty of time before the lunch break ends. But the protagonist insists he needs to go home. Taegu thinks fast because he needs to stall the boy until the brothers arrive. He then suggests they both skip the rest of the classes. They go to a place called Gameland. Gio is amazed and wonders what this place is with so many bright lights. He confesses he did not even know places like this existed in the world. It is the first time he has seen anything like it. He points and says that is the same doll Hyeji carries in her backpack. Taegu asks if it is really the first time he has seen a machine like that, and he tells him he has to try playing at least once. He explains that he just needs to control the claw and hook the doll to lift it. The boy manages to grab and drop the prize at the machine exit. Gio celebrates wildly for getting a doll just like the girls. Taegu thinks the kid is enjoying himself, and it will not be a problem stalling until the brothers show up. He then asks if the boy has never been to a coin karaoke. He explains that he just needs to pick a song and say what he wants to sing, and the machine will play it. The protagonist confesses he does not know any songs, but Taegu tells him to sing whatever comes to mind. The protagonist ends up singing a children's song. He sings with absolute determination, and Taegu wonders how long he will try to keep up that act. The protagonist explains that this is truly the only song he knows. It was the song his mother taught him before they separated when he was 7 years old, and after that, he could never have a normal life again. Taegu grows thoughtful at that revelation. He really wants to know what the boy truly is, and if all heart mutants are full of trauma like this. That story is deeply affecting his emotional side. He decides he will make the boy live in an extraordinary way and promises to show him a whole new world. They start playing on an arcade drum, and they spend a long time playing fighting video games together. The protagonist even trips and falls on a dance machine. Taegu laughs at the situation and says he is hopelessly clumsy. The day passes and they have a great time. Gio mentions that everything was amazing and that it is the first time he has ever had this much fun in his life. But Taegu's phone begins to ring. He asks who is calling at this hour. Young Chul tells him to answer that shitty phone already. Taegu remembers he was supposed to hold the guy down to teach him a lesson, but ended up forgetting because he was having fun. He got so excited that they even took photos together. He looks at each of the photos with a certain fondness. Gio appears sitting with the dog in the picture. Later, in a dark alley, he meets the delinquents. He apologizes and lets them know he found out the boy is no mutant at all. The guys get even more irritated at this. Taegu thinks that it is not his fault. He remembers hearing that the dog is the boy-only family, so he says he found that very sad. He understands well because his own dog is already 17 years old, and he does not know when the animal will die. Just thinking about it makes him want to cry. He is talking about the dog when a fist flies in his direction. Young Chul lands a punch on him and sends the kid flying. He approaches while the boy remains on the ground. He grabs Taegu by the hair with force and asks asks if he thinks this is a joke because he wants to know right now where the mutant is. He asks if the boy cannot understand what he is saying. After all, the whole gang gathered just to catch this guy. Taegu tries to explain that he spent the entire day with the kid and felt no mutant aura whatsoever. He swears the guy is just an ordinary loser who got exhausted after 2 games at the arcade. He says the boy is a complete idiot and apologizes for them coming all this way for nothing. Youngchul asks if he is sure there is no one there. He asks if Taegu is upset because he took a beating from his older brother. He warns that it is obvious from the boy face that he is lying. He orders the boy to tell the real reason he changed his mind. He asks if the situation seems scary, since mutants are dangerous. He says they will not come out losing in this and laughs in the kid face. Taegu asks if they are being serious, but Youngchul promises to hand him $500. If he hands over the mutant, he will get all that, because there is already a broker ready to trade the guy. Taegu wonders to himself if this is not human trafficking. Mutant kidnapping crimes have been happening recently, and rumor has it the government and research institutes pay big money for them. He thought it was just a street rumor, and now he sees his brother doing things he only saw on the internet. He says the boy is truly worthless, but Youngchul delivers a brutal kick to him. The impact makes the boy slam his back against the wall. Taegu thinks the situation has become absolute hell. The leader orders the thugs to beat him until the kid spills his guts. They start kicking him relentlessly. Taegu tries to curl up to defend himself from the savage blows. He groans in pain as he remembers the past. Back in the day, he also used to get beaten like this. The guys called him a shitty nerd. Youngchul asks who gave the first-year students the right to bully their own friends. They run away and apologize. He calls his brother. He says the boy belongs to his dojo and should not be taking a beating there. Taegu thinks the brother looked cool and fought well. He wanted them to be real brothers because both seemed incredible. But Youngchul warns that he has known him for a long time and spots a lie from afar. Then he says the boy is loyal and incredible, but he warns that selling to the runner is no joke. He explains that trying to sell alone yields 200 or 300 at most. When the body hurts, loyalty is useless. He remembers that the boy wanted to live an incredible life. He says making a lot of money is the most shameless way to live. So the two decide they will live an incredible life. But Taegu says he is sorry for everything. He confesses he does not feel incredible at all right now. He wonders what he just said to the guy. Youngchul gets angry and says he already understands. Taegu apologizes again and says the words slipped out by accident. The fist wrapped in chains swings toward him, but Gio grabs Youngchul by the arm in that exact moment. He points out the chain is almost as thick as a finger and has weld marks. He explains that a strike from that makes the wound take a long time to heal. Everyone around starts wondering who this guy is. Taegu wants to know how he ended up there, but Gio says he came looking for him because he was taking too long. Taegu tells him to run and explains that the guys are brothers he knows. He confesses he actually called the guys to deal with Gio. He admits he even spilled the secret about him being a heart mutant. He grits his teeth in deep anger at himself. He says he was furious about getting beaten earlier and apologizes for what he did, but Gio just wants to know why he was standing there taking a beating like that. Youngchul looks on in disappointment, and Taegu has no answer. In that instant, one of the delinquents strikes Gio hard in the head. The others join the circle and start beating him. They strike Gio in the head several times. The little dog Fry starts barking in despair. Meanwhile, Taegu tries to defend Gio from the blows. Another thug asks if that really is the mutant who decided to show up on his own, but Gio just crouches and touches the blood scattered on the ground. He absorbs it all through his fingers. The guy watches the scene and grows scared. Next, Gio delivers a strike and shatters his jaw. He moves very fast to dodge the other attacks. He uses the momentum and throws the guy far away. After that, Gio finally stands up. He stops right in front of the group and stares everyone down. Youngchul screams, ordering the crowd to end his life. Then all the guys charge forward gripping baseball bats. They start beating him relentlessly. But out of nowhere, one of the guys goes flying through the air. The same happens to each of them. Gio charges forward and takes down another delinquent. He immediately drops one more. He looks up, where another one comes at him with a baseball bat. The bat strikes his head hard, but the protagonist simply punches the guy in the back. The punk hits the wall and shatters it. They all wonder why he is so strong and if he is even human. But Gio grabs him by the throat. Youngchul charges with his knife and orders his subordinates to do the same. He figures the guy is also human and will lose his life like anyone else if stabbed. He says that hurts like hell, but the protagonist just spits a little blood. Youngchul keeps stabbing him repeatedly until the protagonist catches the knife. The fat guy is surprised by this. The protagonist tells him to stop stabbing. Then he yanks the knife from his hand. Youngchul trembles in fear and wonders what kind of heart he has to still be standing. Gio says that the heart he has is none of his business and drives the knife into the thigh of the fat guy. All the others start giving up the attack, but the protagonist darts out of there. He grabs each of them with terrifying speed. He says they now know who he is. None of them will be able to escape. Twigim barks with joy this time. With the two criminals completely beaten down, Gio holds them in front of Taegu, who immediately calls his name. Taegu asks if he is okay and says he will call for emergency help, but the protagonist says he is fine. Taegu wonders about the wound, but he realizes the situation and turns his face away in shame. Then he apologizes for it. He extends his own fist and punches himself while saying to choose his company wisely. After all, he sold out a friend. He apologizes for selling him out and says he used to be close to those guys. He thought everything would be fine if he hung out with them, but he is just delinquent trash. He looks up right after. Gio is holding a cloth. He says Taegu has a bleeding nose and should clean it with that. Taegu takes the cloth and questions if it is really meant to clean the blood. He sees that it is a puppy training pad. Taegu says he will wipe his face before he gets beaten again, but Gio notes that just a moment ago he claimed he had no right to be his friend. Gio says it seems he is not the only one who considers him a friend, so everything is fine. Taegu is surprised to hear this. He starts crying at the declaration. He hugs the protagonist and breaks down in tears. He apologizes and says Gio is a really good guy. Youngchul asks to leave and says he has already learned his lesson. He promises he will not tell anyone that the guy is a heart mutant. Taegu gets angry and asks what he is talking about. He kicks the guy in the face and warns that he should have apologized first. He says this guy is utter trash and acts like a pig. He states he knew this from the moment he laid eyes on him. From a distance, Gio asks if they were not friends. Taegu wants to know what they should do with these guys now, but Youngchul begs them to wait a moment. He says he will not do anything else and pleads with them not to call the police. At that exact moment, a loud siren wails. The police officers arrive announcing they are from the Sudam station and received a complaint from a neighbor. The gangsters begin to tremble with fear. Taegu notes that the police arrived at the perfect time. He points and says, "These pieces of shit are selling people." He explains that if they raid the gang hideouts, they will find a lot of evidence. He states they are all dangerous criminals and the police need to arrest everyone. Right after that, Youngchul starts screaming. He cries for help from the officers. He weeps saying his bones are broken and he took a knife to the leg. He celebrates the arrival of the police and claims they were brutally beaten. Taegu finds this absurd and asks who exactly beat up whom. He explains that the men tried to kidnap Gio and cause this entire bloody mess. Youngchul points at Gio and points out that he does not have a single scratch while the whole gang is injured. At this, all the thugs start pretending to be the victims. The officers order everyone to calm down because they will sort the story out at the station. But Youngchul reveals to the guards that the protagonist is a heart mutant. He says this is why the boy managed to beat up the entire gang single-handedly. The officers immediately start looking at Gio with disgust. They ask if he is sure he is a mutant and demand his identification and registration. Gio replies he does not have anything like that. The officers ask if he is not registered by the government and warn him that this violates the special mutant law. They say they will start registering him right there and order him to show his identification and use his ability. The protagonist is completely lost and fails to understand the situation. He thinks about the trouble it will cause if those lab guys find his registration. He knows that the moment he is registered, the government will be able to track his every move. In that instant, Hyeji asks the guards to wait a moment. She greets the officers politely. The two immediately ask who the girl is. Instead of answering, Hyeji simply extends her phone and asks them to take the call. The officer answers the phone right away. On the other end, Superintendent Hyun from the mutant department identifies herself. The officer panics completely and rushes to introduce himself as well. Hyun explains that the case is an attempted kidnapping of a heart mutant and orders them to arrest the thugs. She adds that the mutant is just a witness and must be released. She says that as the team leader, she will handle the final report, and the officer accepts the order at once. The guard hangs up and shouts to arrest the thugs and let the others go. Youngchul is baffled and asks what is happening. He wants to know who that person on the phone was with so much power to order the gang arrested like that. He wants to know who that girl was. Gio asks what is happening and how she knew he was there. Hyeji says she saw Gio at school surrounded by some strange guys and decided to follow him. The protagonist asks if she is talking about Taegu. He tries to understand what just happened. Taegu thinks she is the goddess of the school. He gets jealous of the boy Luck. Gio approaches the car and asks what they were going to do with him. He wants to know if the Hermes laboratory gave the order. Youngchul replies that he has never heard of that place and that they were just going to hand him over to a local broker. He explains that they are brokers specialized in trading heart mutants. Gio announces that he wants to find these brokers. That way that man will end up at the police station. Hyeji yells that she will not let him do that under any circumstances. She says it is too dangerous and that he has no idea how terrifying those guys are. She reminds him that her sister warned her they only go after heart mutants and that they are real monsters. Gio replies that this is exactly why he wants to see them. The girl does not understand why he is so obsessed with finding a broker. The protagonist scratches his face. He explains that he might be able to find his friends through these brokers. Taegu remembers that Gio had said he had no friends. Gio explains that he had no friends on the outside, but lived with several back in the laboratory. Life inside came down to suffering through experiments every single day, until one day he is taken to a strange place. He has never walked that far before and is terrified. He keeps wondering what kind of test they will run on him this time. Then, a rain of swords begins. The protagonist realizes the swords are flying, and that they will repeat this multiple times. He feels fear, but knows that if he does not go in, he cannot predict what they will do to him. When the door opens, the scene is tense. A mutant throws several knives at a girl who controls ice. Meanwhile, another boy in the corner tries to control his bees. Geo is shocked by the chaos. He watches a knife emerge from the hand of one of them. The target seems to be his head. He makes a swift and precise cut, but the girl is faster and freezes Geo before he gets hit. The other boy is startled. Geo unfreezes shortly after. The girl gets what she wanted. She slaps the boy on the head and asks what he is thinking, since the target is not a monster. She tells him to pay attention to the laboratory coat. Geo is completely lost. The other children run over to him and look very excited. Geo tries to hide his face out of shame. The children notice this immediately. They say everything is fine, and that he only looks like a skeleton because he is a mutant. They ask if it is his first time in the learning class. After that, everyone starts introducing themselves. That is how Geo met his friends. It turns out that place gathers several children used as experiments to give them basic education. Everyone there is a mutant. That is why they connect so quickly. Classes only happen a few times a year, so they rarely see each other, but the protagonist is left completely confused. Taegu cries and asks what kind of life he had been living. Hyeji comments that this means he had friends. She wants to know where they are now. Geo explains that on the day they escaped the lab, the men chased everyone, forcing them to separate. The girl concludes that this is why he is looking for a broker. This man might have hunted his friends down. She tells him to go after the man and promises to do everything in her power to help. Taegu agrees. He says it is a good thing he took the phone from Youngchol. The number for the broker is definitely in there. He finds the contact and says he was thinking of going after him at 7 in the evening. Geo says the time is now, and they should head over there. Later, in another warehouse, several thugs charge with knives against a hooded man. He dodges each of them with great ease. He creates a blade in his own hand. He comments that if the guy swings the knife like that, he will not be able to cut anything. They all fall to the ground right after. The gang leader aims a gun and says knives do not work against him. He says they need to use firearms, but even his revolver is sliced in half. The boss freezes in front of the mutant. Lee Chaewon says that if used correctly, it can even cut steel. He is the bearer of the sword heart. One of the thugs tries to run, but he is hit and falls to his knees on the ground. Chaewon wishes him good luck for next time. He checks his phone and wants to know who is texting him. His expression instantly turns serious. The person in the message says they want to sell a product right now if possible. It seems he has a new client. Geo remembers the man saying he would be in that alley. He looks to the side and realizes this is the exact place. He turns toward the sides of the container. He thinks there are still 30 minutes left until the meeting with the broker. He reflects that a broker traffics humans with special hearts, and rumors say the man might be a mutant. Earlier, Hyeji asks if he is really going to meet this man. She reminds him that these hunters seek out hearts, and she heard some of them are also mutants. Geo says this only means the broker deals with several mutants and could be the key to finding his friends. He tells her not to worry because today he will only watch from afar. With his ability, it will not be hard to escape. He crouches down and thinks that is exactly what he told Hyeji. But the truth is these men sell mutants like him. If he gets the chance, he will wipe them all out. He figures that if he has to fight, he will need to grab a weapon for a surprise attack. If they are heart mutants, charging in without thinking is useless. To fight a mutant, you have to discover their ability first. Suddenly, a knife flies in his direction. Geo manages to dodge, and the poles behind him are sliced. He is startled by the power of that blade. Chaewon asks if there is a rat there. He says the kid is being too obvious hiding like that in the alley. He wants to know if the kid is with the police. Geo wonders if this man is the broker. He sees the guy using a knife and begins to wonder if he is just a normal person. He thinks that if it is a human, it will be much easier to catch. So he puts more strength into his fingers, and he charges at full speed. He believes the guy will not even have time to react, but his fist stops right in front of the man's face. He wonders what is happening, until he notices the face in front of him belongs to his friend Chaewon. Chaewon draws his knife and asks how he knows his name. He lunges forward and unleashes several cuts on the protagonist all at once. Geo falls to the ground instantly, but he tries to get up quickly, and he realizes he cannot move because his tendons were slashed. He cut everything in a split second, and that blade looks very dangerous. That sword skill is insane. In the past, when they were in the middle of an escape, several pieces of stone were thrown in their direction, but they were sliced before causing any damage. Chaewon was responsible for that, announcing that he would clear the path for them. Returning to the present, Chaewon asks again how he knows his name, but he notices the protagonist acting in a strange way. He wants to know how the guy is managing to stand up with severed tendons. The protagonist replies that he is Kim Geo, who was previously a skeleton. Chaewon is confused by the answer, and and asks if he is the same guy from the lab. The protagonist confirms that he is alive and that it has been a long time. Chaewon asks more questions to make sure of the story. Gio explains that he managed to heal completely and thinks his friend finally recognizes who he is. But Chaewon readies his blades while the protagonist runs toward him, and he throws all the knives incredibly fast. Gio manages to stay on his feet after the attack, and he says his friend seems to have recognized him, but wants to understand the reason for the assault. Chaewon says that seeing the wounds heal makes him certain it is Kim Gio. The protagonist confirms and tells him to look closely, but Chaewon charges once more with his blade in hand, delivering a slash that the protagonist can barely dodge. He rolls on the ground trying to understand what is happening and why his friend is attacking to kill. Chaewon charges again, saying that he knows the reason better than anyone, and follows up with several cuts right after, hitting the protagonist's arms and legs dead on. Gio thinks that no matter how much he tries to dodge, the guy keeps landing every strike. If the fight continues like this, he will end up losing a lot of blood, so he decides he needs to calm his friend down first, and ends up with his arm pierced by the blade. Chaewon stands right over the protagonist and asks if he really thinks his fists are a match for a sword. Gio replies that he knows very well how dangerous he is, but soon after Chaewon notices a detail. The protagonist used his own arm as bait to trap the blade. In that instant, Gio grabs his hand with brutal force. He holds on with maximum strength and pulls him back. This catches even Chaewon off guard. Then Gio throws him straight into a nearby structure. The smoke settles after a few seconds. Chaewon says he thought he was a weakling, but now sees he is full of strength. He asks why Gio ran away if he could fight like this. Gio asks what he is talking about. Chaewon recalls the day at the lab when they tried to escape together. One of the boys was caught by a guard. This happened while everyone else was hiding. Chaewon asks for more metal because he needs an iron pipe. Gio was facing the situation head on. They were surrounded and were going to lose their lives right there. It was right at that moment that he abandoned everyone and ran away. Gio tries to explain himself. He says he had no choice and that everyone would die if he stayed there. But Chaewon touches the wall and calls him a coward. All the metal in the place responds to his hand. He says he knows about the regeneration, and warns that if he cuts him to pieces, it will take a while to grow back. That is why he tells Gio to go ahead and try to withstand the attack. Gio thinks he needs to block the strike with his arm, but his abdomen is sliced open in that exact instant. Chaewon stops behind him and says the real threat was right there. Even the iron beams are cut in half. People passing by in the distance hear the noise and wonder what happened. Hyeji tells Taegu to call the police immediately. Meanwhile, inside the construction site, Chaewon notes that his regeneration is much faster and finds it absurd that he is fine after a strike like that. But Gio says he misunderstood everything and that he never ran away. He explains that he fought to the end to protect everyone at the lab and only came here to try to save whoever was still trapped. Chaewon questions if it was all just a misunderstanding. They both start to hear the noise of the people outside. Then Chaewon breaks free from his grip. He says he caused too much trouble and tells Gio to go to his hideout if he wants to talk more. He adds that a lot has happened since that day, and they have plenty to discuss. Gio remains hesitant about this. He thinks about how Chaewon has completely changed his personality. He used to be a very lively and charming guy. Gio wonders what happened to him to end up living in a hideout and dealing with brokers. Back in the present, Chaewon chops an onion with force. Gio is left with his mouth hanging open watching that. The young man throws the ingredients into the air, putting on a show. The people around them are also captivated by the scene. Gio wonders if that place is really the supposed hideout, and he tries to understand what went down for Chaewon to turn out this way. Meanwhile, Chaewon hands out the burgers and tells the crowd to try them. The whole crowd starts talking about how handsome he is. Gio cannot even comprehend what is happening there. He wonders if this is really the hideout and thinks about how crazy the whole situation is. Later on, Chaewon sits down and explains that this is where he works. Gio is a bit awkward about the revelation, and Chaewon points out that this means he is unemployed. Then Chaewon wants to know who the two people spying on them are. Gio introduces Hyeji and Taegu as his friends. Chaewon jokes that it must be nice to be unemployed and still have friends around. The girl defends Gio by saying he has been through a lot, and Taegu adds that Chaewon knows nothing about it. Gio tries to calm things down, assuring them that Chaewon is a good person and they do not need to be tense. Chaewon asks them to start over, since Gio mentioned he did not run away that day. Gio begins to explain that before they tried to escape, there was a bomb in the area. The moment the police surrounded the group, he could perfectly hear the ticking of a bomb. Since they had tested explosives on him multiple times, he remembered the exact sound of the burning fuse. The men had surrounded everyone and were going to blow up the building to bury them in the rubble. If that happened, the strongest might survive, but the weak would have no chance. That is why he grabbed as many explosives as he could carry and ran. He kept running until the explosion happened. Gio does not know if it was because of the bombs, but he woke up lost in the middle of a forest. When he woke up, he went back to the place, but no one was there anymore, so he figured everyone had managed to escape. Chaewon mentions that he remembers hearing the sound of an explosion. He asks if Gio really took the bombs away. Putting a hand to his face, He wonders if he should really believe this story. Gio admits it sounds crazy, but he swears it is true, since there were many bombs and time was running out. Chaewon starts to cry and says he believes him. The protagonist is confused by this reaction. Then Chaewon prepares a burger for him, saying he knew things would end up that way. Gio asks if all that is for him, and Chaewon replies that he heard he went through tough times, so that burger is a gift. Right then, some girls show up wanting to take a picture with Chaewon. He agrees to take the photo, while Gio ends up in the background of the image. Chaewon apologizes to Gio. He regrets almost cutting the guy before hearing the story, but Gio reassures him by saying it did not even hurt. Gio praises the food and jokes that he envies anyone who can eat that every day. Chaewon lets him know that if he wants more, he just has to ask. After all, he is the manager of the diner. Gio gets excited and comments that Chaewon seems completely normal now. Chaewon boasts that it was easy. He tells Gio that he can have a normal life too, and offers him a job at the place. He even promises to use his managerial authority to give him a bonus on his salary, but Gio asks him to wait a moment. He recalls that the two met at the place where he was going to see the broker, and questions why Chaewon is working with those people. Gio throws it in his face that those bastards were the ones who put them in the lab, and he wants to understand how Chaewon can ally with them. Chaewon defends himself by saying it was all an act. Scratching his head, he explains that he pretends to be a broker. His plan is to lure the people who kidnap mutants to wipe those guys out. Gio asks if he is serious, and Chaewon confirms that he is. The protagonist lets out a sigh, saying that this is a relief. So Chaewon works during the day and hunts brokers at night, stating that someone has to do the dirty work. Gio thinks his attitude is incredible. After all, Chaewon is doing his best to help. He is happy to hear this and says that if Chaewon needs help, he just has to ask. Ultimately, he went there to find out what happened to his friends. Chaewon is surprised to hear this. He then admits he needs help. He explains that he needs to take down a certain broker, and that his strength will make everything easier. If they corner the guy, they might find out where the others are. He extends his fist and says the help will be very welcome. Gio tells him he can go back with him. The two say goodbye at the end of their shift. Gio thanks the two for letting him talk to an old friend. Taegu asks if that guy was really his friend, because he could very well be lying. Hyeji agrees, and confesses she was scared when the guy said he was a broker. The protagonist assures them that everything is fine. After all, the guy has not changed at all. The girl asks how he is going to get in touch if he does not even have a phone, but the protagonist shows the phone in his hand that used to belong to Youngchul. Somewhere else, a guy is running away. Some thugs yell to corner him. He looks back and releases a liquid from his finger. He shoots the liquid toward the men. The thugs start slipping and stumbling on the ground. The young man says that is pretty good, but he is immediately struck in the face by another man. The guy asks where he thinks he is going. The mutant begs them to leave him alone, and says his power is nothing special, since he can only shoot oil. The man grabs his hair and asks if he is really a mutant. Another thug says not all of them are strong and that trash like him is no better than a normal human. The guy replies that it is still easy money since they are paying $1 billion a head. The young man panics in that instant, but Chaewon appears, places a hand on his shoulder and asks if that is really all he is worth. The thug asks who he is. He asks when he got there, but his arm is immediately sliced off. Chaewon says that if they are risking their lives like this, they should charge more. The others charge forward and yell to wipe him out. Chaewon announces he will put an end to all this and simply vanishes. He reappears right after slicing through all of them. Then he lunges at the last thug. The guy is pointing a gun straight at him. Chaewon asks if he knows anything. He notes that the man's gun is also made of metal. With this, he activates the power of the sword's heart. The trigger of the weapon locks completely even as the man tries to fire. The guy wonders what the hell just happened. It turns out that several small blades have formed inside the gun. They pierce the man's hand all at once. He pulls his injured hand away in front of Chaewon. He falls to the ground next as Chaewon warns him to avoid places that have metal. The mutant fallen on the ground thanks him for being saved. He mentions that he is also a mutant like him. He says he thought it was the end when the guy showed up, but Chaewon tells him to shut his mouth. Chaewon calls the boss and reports that he has retrieved the mutant. He states that the guy can now be sent straight to the lab. The confused mutant tries to ask what he means, but gets knocked out cold an instant later. Chaewon says the guy talks too much, and reveals he is actually the broker trying to sell the mutant. The boss comments that this is very typical of Chaewon. He says his level is completely different from ordinary lab rats. Then Chaewon says he has something else important to report. He reports finding Kim Gio, who has the heart of resurrection. The man on the other end of the line is left in absolute shock at the news. Chaewon reminds him of the promise of any reward for capturing the target and asks if the offer still stands. The boss immediately confirms that it does. Chaewon then guarantees he will deliver him the next day. Later at home, he starts chopping some carrots. While cooking, he thinks about how he is going to catch Kim Gio. He figures luring the guy will be a breeze since he suspects nothing. The real problem is that Gio is far too strong. He is no longer the scrawny kid from before, and his regeneration is absurd. Normal methods will not work. and because of this, he needs to find a place filled with metal. Shortly after, he announces that the curry is ready. A girl in a wheelchair cheers and says her brother is the best. Shiwon mentions he added extra potatoes on purpose for Chaeyeon. The girl gets thrilled and thanks him. He strokes her head and tells her to just ask if she wants anything else. She asks him to sit and eat with her, but Chaewon explains he cannot today because he needs to head out again. Chaeyeon gets a bit upset and asks if he is serious. Chaewon leaves and tells her to start eating, but asks her to save some for him. Night then falls on another apartment in the city. Hyeji peels an orange while thinking that Geo had an exhausting day. With everything that happened, she knows he must be completely drained. She remembers that meat and fruit are great for recovering energy. Because of this, she decides to prepare the food. She piles up a bizarre mountain of tangerines and strawberries. She figures that if the artificial intelligence said the combination is good, then it should work out. She reflects that she could never do this without his help, and she begins to think she might even have a talent for cooking. At that moment, her sister Hyein shows up and asks if she has already eaten. The two start bickering, and her sister makes a disgusted face at the food she prepared. Hyeji calls her sister crazy and says she knows nothing about cooking. She mentions their other sister will not return until morning, and tells her to go to sleep early. Meanwhile, Geo says he is fine, and is just waiting for Chaewon to call. The girl asks if he really liked reuniting with his friend that much. He confirms and says he missed the guy a lot. She notes she has not known Geo for long, but has never seen him so at peace. Geo explains that Chaewon is a very important friend to him. He recalls the past when his friend woke him up asking what he was doing there. In the memory, Geo looks away, slightly embarrassed. He replies that he was just sitting there alone. But right then, Chaewon notices something wrong and asks where his arm is. Geo explains he lost his arm in an experiment days ago and it has not healed yet. Chaewon brushes it off and says that is no problem, since it is just a minor detail. Then he reaches out his hand and tells Geo to grab it. In that instant, he initiates a transformation. He forges a blade directly onto Geo's hand. The boy asks what it is, and Chaewon replies that he thought it looked incredible. Yu-hana asks if he is mocking Geo again. Chaewon says he made his arm amazing, and Geo admires the sword replacing his missing limb. He finds the whole situation genuinely amusing. Yu-hana wonders if both of them have lost their minds. Chaewon extends his fist and praises his friend's good taste. The protagonist fails to understand the gesture and asks what it means. Chaewon explains that real friends bump fists to show absolute trust. The protagonist follows suit and realizes this is how true friends act. Back in the present, he notes that Chaewon is great and used to follow him everywhere. Hyeji says she understands the situation entirely. She mentions how glad she is that he finally found a real friend. Then she invites him to eat and assures him everything is fine. Today's meal is a sweet and sour galbi jjim. Geo is taken aback and asks what is on the plate. The girl explains it is her special recipe. The recipe mixes strawberries and tangerines, and the protagonist admits he has never seen anything like it before. He brings a portion of the food to his mouth. Hyeji asks how it tastes. The protagonist cries and declares the food is incredible. He praises the strange mix of strawberries, meat, and tangerines. Then he asks if Twigim wants to try a bite. In response, the dog makes a face of pure disgust. Hyeji claims she knows the puppy wants some, but has to wait while Twigim just shakes her head in firm denial. Geo says it is the best thing he has ever eaten, and thanks her. Hyeji tells him to leave it to her and promises to cook more often. The protagonist thanks her from the bottom of his heart. Suddenly, his phone begins to vibrate out of nowhere. It is Chaewon calling again. He calls begging for Geo to help him. The protagonist asks what happened, and his friend reveals he was tracking the laboratory guys, but things spiraled out of control. The protagonist tries to grasp the situation, while Hyeji points out this is the very place he was held captive in the past. Chaewon asks if he can go there for backup, and Geo immediately agrees. This leads him to send the full address to the protagonist. Geo announces he must leave to save his friend from imminent danger. He says the food is delicious, but he will not be able to finish it despite all her effort in the kitchen. He warns Hyeji to stay behind because the place is far too dangerous for her. The scene shifts to the dark interior of a metal warehouse. Geo arrives and questions if this is really the right place. He finds the dead silence unsettling since Chaewon gave him this exact address. Geo begins to carefully analyze the area. He notices there is metal covering every single corner. The pipes and the plates and even the floor are forged from pure iron. This is the exact kind of environment where Chaewon holds an absolute tactical advantage. He wonders how his friend could ever be defeated here because it makes no logical sense. He knows he must remain completely alert and resolves not to let anyone capture him too. He imagines that Chaewon might have been captured and is trapped somewhere trembling in fear. Meanwhile, in another location, his friend touches the ground directly. Instantly, multiple blades start sprouting from the ground. They shoot fast toward the protagonist, and it looks like they all pierce him at once. He panics at the sudden attack, but manages to dodge another blade at the very last second. He looks at the sword trying to understand what it is. and wonders what the hell is happening. Chaewon thanks him for showing up. Geo asks what he is doing since he said he was being captured. Chaewon replies that the situation is exactly what it looks like. The protagonist then realizes what this means, and Chaewon confirms he was tricked. The protagonist has to block another blade with his bare hands. He dodges one more attack with extreme difficulty. Chaewon charges forward, and he manages to evade the strike again, but Chaewon finds an opening and lands a solid kick. The impact throws the protagonist far back. Geo even coughs up blood from the force of the blow. He is hurled straight towards some metal spikes. Chaewon stares at him with a completely serious expression and says he was happy to see him today. He explains that he only saw a skeleton for 7 years and that it is a bit weird, but he recognized him by the way he talks. He remembers how they laughed and chatted, and all those memories came rushing back at once, and that is exactly why he lied. He now introduces himself as a broker, says he hunts core mutants and delivers them all to the lab, and that he is only there to hand him back to those guys. Chaewon touches one of the walls. A giant blade erupts right behind the protagonist. He barely manages to escape, but Chaewon is already in front of him with his sword raised. The protagonist notices the guy is very different from before. He clearly is no longer trying to capture him alive. It seems he really wants to kill him right here. The protagonist grabs a metal plate from the ground to defend himself. He does not want to believe that bastard is actually going to betray him, and tells him to wake up and explain what is going on. He asks to at least talk about the situation, but Chaewon touches the metal and warns that there is nothing to talk about. Multiple blades instantly start sprouting from the plate. The protagonist can only think about what a scumbag he is. He rolls backward to dodge and asks if the guy has lost his mind. He warns that the lab is full of criminals and that they cannot be trusted, and tells him to stop being an idiot and wake up to reality. As he speaks, he kicks 2 pieces of metal at the guy, but Chaewon does not even answer, and keeps the same serious face. He deflects the 2 pieces of metal away, like it is nothing. Geo mutters to himself while trying to analyze his surroundings. He starts running, knowing there is no way to land a direct hit. Chaewon touches the ground and warns that trying to run away will not do any good. Multiple blades erupt from the ground. Chaewon warns him that this entire place is made of metal. He says the boy has no chance of escaping while Geo dodges yet another blade. Geo wonders if he planned all of this from the very beginning. It becomes clear that his true intention is to drag the boy right back to the laboratory. Geo yells out demanding a reason and asks if he really does not care about sending a friend back to that hell itself. But Chaewon appears right behind him and replies that he could not care less. Geo accepts this answer and warns that he will fight back as he immediately readies a punch. In response, Chaewon shifts the trajectory of his attack. Even so, the boy ends up taking a deep slash. But Chaewon is caught off guard right after. He takes a brutal punch straight to the jaw. He tries to process what just happened. The sword strike barely even seems to have hurt the boy. Then he remembers that years of being used as a test subject drastically increased the physical endurance of Geo. His regeneration is on an absurd level. He heals the wound the exact moment he is cut and uses that fraction of a second to strike back. So Chaewon charges in with another slash. He unleashes a savage barrage of strikes without giving Geo a single moment to breathe. The goal is to keep him from attacking while he tries to heal. Both maintain deadly serious expressions in the heat of combat. In the past, Geo had been chained up in a different room. The weights binding his arms and legs are released. The scientists announce they will test the healing response of the resurrection heart. At that moment, the room doors open, revealing the presence of Chaewon on the other side. Geo looks confused and asks what is going on. The scientist explains they will observe body regeneration when taking damage from the sword heart abilities. Because of this, Chaewon is ordered to attack with full force. The boy asks if these people have lost their minds. He tells them to stop this nonsense and warns he will not do anything as he turns his back to leave. But the collar around his neck begins delivering severe electric shocks. Geo notices his suffering and begs him not to hold back and just attack because he will be fine. Chaewon calls the boy crazy and says he cannot hurt a friend. Geo tries to calm the situation down by saying it will not even hurt, but Chaewon replies that he would rather die than do it. This led to Geo changing tactics, and he begins taunting him, calling his friend a weakling and telling him to obey the scientists. Chaewon freezes as he listens to this. Geo keeps going, saying his only talent is cutting things, and that his power is complete trash compared to the others. This strikes a massive blow to the pride of Chaewon. Geo tells him to stop wasting time and just attack already. In that instant, Chaewon materializes a blade in his hand. He charges with everything he has straight at his friend, and lands a clean slash right in the middle of his chest. Geo feels the blow and wonders if he went a little too far with his taunts. Chaewon relentlessly continues attacking and asks if that still feels weak. Geo holds back the pain and says it does not hurt at all. Chaewon ends the sequence with one final deep slash. This successfully concludes the regeneration test of the laboratory. Chaewon stands completely still, panting heavily after unleashing all his rage. Geo thinks it hurts a lot, but he notices the pain is not as bad as he imagined. Chaewon tells him to keep pretending because the researchers will not notice anything if he is covered in blood. Geo asks if he cut his own arm. Chaewon confirms and tells him to shut up before the guys notice. The boy says he did not need to do that because he would heal anyway. But Chaewon says he knows his regeneration is quite slow. He also mentions he heard they do not give him enough blood out of fear of that regeneration. He tells Gio to stop looking at him with pity. He says friends do not do that. Back in the present, the blood-filled fight continues. Gio wonders why he is acting like this now since he was a good guy in the past. He plants his foot firmly on the ground, and he charges forward to throw a punch at Chaewon. The young man does not even have time to react, but he soon notices that the strike stopped. He thinks it is impossible for this to happen. Even after taking a cut, Gio still looks at him that way. He grinds his teeth in anger. Immediately after, he takes a slash to the chest. He braces himself against the ground right after, and he begins to run away from there. Chaewon says this is all a joke. He tells Gio to just give up because he will hand the boy over to the lab, or maybe he will turn in Heji and Taegu. He warns that he will go after his friends first. Gio lets the man slice his wrist. The blood begins to drip onto the floor. Chaewon says he is finally looking into his eyes and thinks his friends really are important to Gio. He says finding students is far too easy, and he warns that if he runs away, his friends will take the fall. But Gio shoves his hand straight into the man's mouth. He cuts the back of Chaewon's mouth, and he warns him not to cross the line. Gio reminds him that Hyeji and Taegu are his friends too. He says he wants to hear what the guy has to say until the end because they are friends. Gio's heart starts beating faster. The boy warns that he no longer cares about his motives. Chaewon realizes he cut his mouth to absorb the blood. The blood flows toward Gio, flowing right through his blood vessels and forming his hand all over again. Chaewon fails to understand what happened to the arm he just cut. The boy lands a massive punch on him. Chaewon is thrown backward. He coughs up blood from the sheer impact. The man feels like he broke about 3 ribs even with his iron-reinforced body that was supposed to withstand the blows. But he knows that if he takes another punch, it will be the end of the line. Gio lands another strike right after. Chaewon goes flying once again. He slams hard into a massive pile of scrap metal. Only one thought runs through his mind. The guy is moving too fast and there is no time to react. The protagonist lands another heavy blow on him. Chaewon cannot understand where all this power is suddenly coming from. He wonders if the guy really got this strong just from drinking his blood. In response, he creates a barrage of blades, thinking he needs to make some distance and take control of the fight again. But the protagonist dodges every single one of them with ease. Chaewon grows confused, trying to figure out if the guy knows where the blades are coming from. Then he realizes his opponent is just watching and dodging on pure instinct. His reaction speed is absurd, and he realizes that Kim Jio's ability goes far beyond that resurrection heart. Regeneration is not the only trick he has up his sleeve. His strength and reflexes are nothing like when he was a skeleton, because now he is on another level. He knows he will lose the fight like this, so he intentionally touches the ground. He absorbs the ambient metal, complaining that he didn't want to resort to this. He sucks in iron particles to his body's absolute limit, which ends up destroying his veins and organs in the process. To compensate, the sword heart reacts in a highly violent manner, and like an explosion, multiple blades begin to sprout from every direction. His body becomes a focal point surrounded by thousands of blades ready to slice. He screams that no matter how fast the guy can heal, he will never be able to dodge this much at once, but Kim Jio could not care less. He charges forward with everything he has, aiming straight for his opponent's stomach, and he lands a brutal strike, even with the blades slicing into his body along the way. Chaewon feels the full impact of the attack. He immediately coughs up a massive amount of blood. The protagonist says that this kind of superficial cut does not hurt at all. Having his flesh torn is something he can endure all day if he has to. What really hurts is seeing his friend in this pathetic state. Gio starts beating him repeatedly, without pausing for a single breath. The impact shatters every single blade to pieces. Chaewon's face is completely destroyed by the punches. The protagonist does not stop hitting him for a second. He violently smashes his former friend's face into the ground, and says that what actually hurts is the betrayal. All the surrounding metal is twisted by the force of the impact. Gio says the pain goes far beyond those cheap blades. Knowing that a friend of 10 years was trying to send him back to hell is what weighs on him. That was what was slowly killing him inside. He demands to know the reason for all this nonsense. He still cannot understand and wants to know what those bastards promised him, especially since he knows full well how much of a living nightmare that place is. Chaewon struggles to open his mouth. He asks what the point of talking about this is at this stage of the game. He says he was working for the lab, and that he tried to sell him to the group. He states that they can never be friends again after this. Gio grits his teeth in rage when he hears this. He lands another full-force punch directly to his face. He grabs the guy by the collar and asks what the hell he is talking about. He warns him that he does not have the right to decide this on his own, and especially not try to run away from responsibility by saying everything is over. He demands a real reason so he can at least try to understand the situation. He needed to at least offer an excuse. That is if he ever considered him a true friend. Then the memories of them together start rushing back. The times they playfully grabbed each other's arms, or the fights they both had. Even the moments they celebrated together. They really had some very good times. So he apologizes and says he has no reason. Suddenly, several soldiers start storming the place. Geo is completely terrified by this. Hundreds of armed soldiers rush toward them. Geo demands to know who is there. He covers his face with his arm because of the harsh light, but the men already have their weapons ready to fire. They have cornered the two of them. A soldier reports on the radio that he found the mutants and calls for backup inside the factory. The protagonist thinks this cannot be real. When he organized the escape, the soldiers received orders to attack immediately. After all, he is the key piece to everything. They keep shooting to kill as they try to take him away. Geo panics at the situation. He knows he has to find a way out of there. So he grabs a piece of metal pipe from the ground. He throws the pipe with all his might, hitting dead center in the direction of one of the officers. And then he sprints in the opposite direction. But when he gets close to a door, the protagonist freezes, not knowing what to do. More men are already waiting for him there. They have surrounded both sides and cut off the escape route. Geo completely despairs. He is trapped with nowhere to run. An officer named Jinuk reports on the radio that both are mutants and orders everyone to hold their position while he alerts headquarters. He orders Team A to block the exits and Team B to advance, while Geo realizes that if he is caught now, it is all over. He would have to return to that laboratory. Jinuk announces that if they are ready, they can open fire. But a hand appears and grabs his radio. A girl snatches the radio from the officer's hand. She says she is High-In from the police mutant task force and that she is taking command of the operation. Jinuk is in shock at this. All the officers are also completely confused when they see her. She orders everyone to lower their weapons right away, and then she slowly walks over to the protagonist. She looks at him and asks if he is Geo. She tells him to stay calm because she came to help since her sister told her everything that was happening. She explains that she is Hyeji's older sister, and she introduces herself to him right there. Geo still hesitates and does not know if he can trust her. Hye-In says the coast is clear, and she turns around asking if the officers are there only because of the incident. They need to restrict civilian access and call the paramedics. Jin Uk yells for her to wait a minute. The Special Mutant Task Force now ignores basic field protocols. They received the report first and already secured the scene, so she should know the law regarding the execution of duties. Another secretary states this is an exception, and that when dealing with wanted mutants, they have priority over the scene. There is the warrant and the investigation data on Lee Chae-won. Jin Uk says there has been a misunderstanding. He is not talking about that guy, but rather the boy in the black shirt. After checking the cameras, they discover he is a mutant, and an unregistered one at that. They are treated as civilians and fall under his jurisdiction. In response, all the soldiers aim their weapons. They order the immediate detainment of this unregistered individual. Geo wonders what he should do, but Hye-In snaps her fingers. The men weapons are marked with pink lines, and they shatter completely in a matter of instants. Everyone wonders what just happened. They realize it is the team leader ability. Hye-In tells him he fails to understand the situation. Jin Uk yells that she just used her ability against her own allies, but she snaps her fingers once more. This causes him to suffer unbearable pain. The man screams right in front of her. Hye-In states this case is a special investigation related to the Hermes laboratory, and nothing is more important than that. Jin Uk is completely shocked by the information. The girl orders him to look around. Those are the traces of their battle. Jin Uk considers the possibility involving those kids. They are the high-risk mutants Hermes has been researching. Getting involved with them is not only hard to escape, but puts his own life in danger, so he tells his men to hand over control of the situation to her. The police grab Chae-won and leave him completely immobilized. Geo asks where they are taking him. The secretary explains that he is a wanted criminal, so the investigation will proceed after the formal arrest procedure. The protagonist wonders if he really did something that bad. That secretary says they need Kim Geo to give a statement as well. He will have a private interview with the team leader, so he must cooperate. Geo dreads having an interview with that scary woman. At the police station, she stares at the protagonist with great excitement. Geo finds this intimidating and wants to know why she is staring at him like that. She tells Geo not to be nervous and explains she called him in to ask a few questions. They are hunting down the Hermes laboratory. She heard from Hyeji that he was held prisoner and managed to escape about 3 years ago. It seems he is still a wanted man. And the truth is, all his friends have been recaptured by the laboratory. It is highly likely they never truly escaped, and the laboratory let them go on purpose just to hunt them again and inflict pure despair. After recapturing them, they did not just lock everyone up, but weaponized their weaknesses to force submission or lured them with promises to commit crimes. Geo questions if Chae-won did this as well, but she reveals he has not spoken a single word, and the only things they know are based strictly on records. The secretary announces that the witness arrived voluntarily. Geo looks at her trying to recognize the face. Chae-yun introduces herself and says they already explained everything outside. Hye-in crouches down and clarifies she has no intention of pushing too hard. She just needs to know what the girl's brother saw and why he did it. Chae-yun is hesitant to get into it, but she finally admits that it is all her fault. Her brother was never like that. She says she was terrified of losing him if she spoke up. Hye-in warns her that if she stays silent, the situation will only get worse. Her brother will have to take the fall for everything alone. The girl wipes her face and agrees. She knows she cannot let him carry this burden by himself. Her brother returned 3 years ago. As soon as he escaped the lab, he rushed to see her and their parents. The problem was their parents had already passed away. She was left behind suffering from disabilities and complications from an accident. She could not do anything on her own. Chae-won could barely process the situation. He hugs the girl and promises to protect her no matter what. Chae-won worked day and night without stopping. But since he lacked a legal identity, money was always tight, and the little he made went straight to her medical bills. Then one day, the lab came for him. The girl screams for her brother. Chae-won tells them to take their hands off her and threatens to kill them all. But a man notes that it has been a while since they last saw each other. The guy says they are not here to arrest him. They no longer plan to keep him locked up and even offer a new identity with a job and money. In exchange, he just needs to help with their work. The lab funded everything for them, but demanded he never speak about the job. He never said a word, but she feels guilty, knowing he committed crimes for her sake. She repeats that it was all her fault and apologizes. Geo tries to console her, saying he did it all for her. The girl is then escorted out of the room. Hye-in says that is the whole story, but she makes a point to be clear about one thing. Even if his goal was to save his sister, the fact remains that he tried to hand his friend over to the lab. If everything had gone as planned, Geo would be trapped in there right now. The protagonist agrees. Hye-in warns him that Chae-won will be punished for his involvement in various crimes. She asks if Geo wants to make one last call before that happens. Geo looks at the phone in surprise. Ultimately, he decides to make the call. He dials the number and stands there waiting for them to answer. When they pick up, he says he knows Chae-won is on the line. He says he heard the whole story. He knows what happened after the lab and understands why he was sold out. He just wants to know why the guy never said anything before. Chae-won sighs on the other end, not knowing what to say. The silence makes the protagonist even angrier. He demands the guy say something. He calls Chae-won a treacherous bastard. He says his friend should have at least made up an excuse. Staying quiet out of shame is pathetic. He tried to sell out his own friend and drag him down to that hell. Geo calls him trash. He tells him to spend the rest of his life rotting in regret. Chae-won stays quiet and looks down. But deep down, he agrees and knows this is exactly what he needed to hear. He prepares to put the phone away, but Geo warns him that the police will take good care of Chae-won. He makes it clear that the guy is trash, but his sister is innocent. That is why he has to pay for his crimes, get out of there and make another burger later, because it was delicious. Chae-won puts the phone away. He remembers the fights he had with Geo in the past. He sighs and thanks him for that. Geo puts the phone back in its place. Hye-in asks if that was enough. She says he is much more generous than she imagined, because if it were her, the revenge would be 10 times worse. The protagonist says he really thought his friends had escaped the laboratory. He believed that even with a hard life, they would be happy. But he was wrong, and those bastards still keep his friends locked up. He wants to save everyone and asks for help. Hye-in breaks into a smile. While placing the cell phone on the table, she says she will accept his help, but asks if he will be alright. Geo replies that it does not matter since he is no longer a weak skeleton. He vows to save his friends and tear the laboratory to pieces. Later at her house, Hye-in runs toward her sister. She hugs the girl and says she missed her terribly after going days without seeing her. Hye-ji asks her to stop, but Hye-in calls her adorable. The girl tells her she should have taken a shower as soon as she got home. Geo watches and thinks she is completely different here. He used to think she was terrifying, but she is the sweetest person in the world when she is with Hye-ji. The girl asks if Geo is alright because she heard he had a serious problem with his friend. Chae-won scratches his head awkwardly, but he replies that everything is fine since her sister handled it all. Hye-ji says that is a relief, and she asks if he wants some of the dish he could not eat earlier. Hye-in finds the topic strange, and her sister points out that she has not eaten yet. She mentions that her sister has to try the sweet and sour recipe she sent by text. Hye-in gets confused and asks if she was not joking, and she wants to know what bastard gave her the idea to make that dish. The girl replies that an artificial intelligence provided the cooking time and the detailed recipe. Hye-in indignantly wonders if that miserable machine was mocking a human being. The two start arguing over whether that thing is actually edible. Hye-ji confesses she changed the recipe a bit. She says the machine advised that vitamin C is good for fatigue, and she wanted to see her sister energized. The phrase keeps pounding in the head of Hye-in. She expects to get a massive stomachache from it, but she decides that you never know how food tastes until you try it. She tosses it in her mouth and claims it is delicious before even swallowing. Hye-ji eagerly asks if it is really good. Hye-in holds the food in her mouth and says it is just a mix of everything tasty. The girl celebrates, saying she is happy with the result, but Geo agrees that the dish is extremely tasty. He says it is so good he could eat it every day. He claims the meat and fruit seem to dance in his mouth, and Hye-in wonders if the taste buds of the boy have not regenerated. After they finish all the food, Hyein says they need to clear something up before continuing. The first priority is sorting out Gio's living situation. She explains she only let him in due to the emergency. Having an adult man living with 2 women is a problem, and sets a bad example for the girl. Hyeji reminds her he is being hunted, and asks where else he could possibly stay. Hyein says she considered leaving him at headquarters, but keeping his identity a secret is the safest option right now. She grabs her phone and makes a call. She asks if there are any open rooms at the official residence, but the answer on the other end of the line is a flat no. She announces the rooms are full, and it will take some time for a spot to open up. Since this is strictly a temporary situation, she allows him to stay at their place for now. Hyeji celebrates the decision. In response, Hyein starts writing several things on a piece of paper. Gio watches her completely lost. She slams the paper down hard on the table. She states that in exchange his only designated space is the living room, and he is strictly forbidden from entering her sister's bedroom. Even for a short stay, the rules must be crystal clear, and that paper is his list of boundaries. She warns him that breaking these rules will bring consequences far worse than he can imagine. That goes double if she ever catches him in Hyeji's room. He will find out the hard way exactly what happens to those who cross that line. Gio agrees to all the terms, while Hyeji comments that her sister went completely overboard with the rules. Hyein shuts down the housing discussion and calls him outside for a talk. The protagonist asks where they are heading. She explains that she needs to test the extent of his mutation. Since it is still early and no one is around, the location serves its purpose perfectly. She reminds him that he wants to help destroy the laboratory. To achieve that, she needs to know exactly what his abilities are. Gio explains that his body rapidly regenerates from injuries. This relies entirely on blood consumption. If he absorbs enough, the healing is almost infinite, but his power plummets the moment his blood supply runs dry. She states her absolute certainty that regeneration is not his only power. She watched his fight earlier and noticed brutal damage that only someone with absurd physical strength could inflict. The protagonist admits he has always been like this. He believes his modified heart makes his body vastly stronger than a normal human. The girl fires back that the aftermath of the fight looked far beyond just strong. Gio explains he never fully regenerated back at the laboratory. He only realized his true strength after escaping when he noticed he grows stronger the more blood he absorbs. Hyein concludes that blood serves as both his medicine and his raw fuel. She then turns her back to him. She tosses a grip strength meter right into his hands. She orders him to squeeze the device with every ounce of strength he has. Gio remembers seeing an identical device back at the laboratory. He grips the meter, unsure if this is really the right way to use it. He channels all his strength into his arm. He forces the flow of blood directly into his hand. He pours every drop of his energy into the crushing grip. But the immense pressure is too much, and he snaps the heavy device clean in half. Hyein stands completely shocked. She tells him that meter was built to withstand 500 kilos of raw pressure. She quickly realizes the boy packs more physical power than an adult gorilla. Gio apologizes for the destruction. He admits he had no idea he was that strong and blames the blood he drank earlier. She openly admits he is far more dangerous than she ever imagined. In that instant, several rocks suddenly launch into the air. The protagonist watches the bizarre scene completely lost. The rocks shoot directly toward him. Gio manages to dodge the sudden attacks with extreme ease, but one rogue stone catches him off guard and slams directly into his head. She says she controlled the trajectory randomly and that dodging one or two was already impressive. With that level of physical skill, he could only be a very high-grade mutant. Gio comments that the stones moved as if they had a life of their own and asks if her mutation is some kind of superpower. Hyein looks at him with a very strange expression. She tells him to stop being an idiot and says that mutations are still just in the realm of science. Her mutation is a state secret and she cannot say anything. But she warns him that he also needs to hide his cards and not reveal that he is a mutant. In reality, he should know this much better than her. Gio agrees and thinks she is absolutely right. Ever since he returned to a human body, he has been using his powers without thinking about the consequences. At that moment, Hyeji appears and gets their attention. She lets them know she brought drinks for both of them. Gio vibrates with joy at the sight of it. Hyein smiles and finds it funny that he acts like a normal boy. Then she makes up an excuse about a work call and walks away. Gio takes a sip of the soda, and Hyeji asks if it is good. He immediately replies that the stuff is delicious. He says the drink is so sweet it seems to light up his brain. It is like flipping a switch in his head, and Hyeji is relieved, saying she is glad he likes it. Gio tastes something very familiar. He remembers when Chaewon gave him a burger to eat, and he realizes he drank that same thing together with it back then. Hyeji notices his face and asks what happened. Gio plays it off and says it is nothing major, but she is a bit confused by his reaction. He explains that he just remembered a friend for a second and thought of the whole crew. They were truly very close. She comments that you can tell how much he thinks about his friends and how much he likes them. Gio says they are like family to him. Remembering life inside the laboratory was horrible, but the moments with his friends saved everything. This made him forget a large part of the pain he felt. They were the ones who kept him alive and breathing in the middle of that hell itself. He really wanted everyone to have escaped together and be happy, but he ended up being the only one to get away. His friends remained trapped in the laboratory with nowhere to run. That is why he decided he would go back to save the whole crew, even if he needed to clash head-on with the organization and tear down the entire laboratory. Hyeji looks at him without fully understanding what he meant. She says she is not a mutant and does not know how she can be useful, but she wants to help in any way necessary. He just needs to say the word and she will do what she can. Gio is a bit surprised by her support but ends up smiling. A few days pass and they are at school. The girls gossip about the new student and plan to go over there to ask for his social media. Gio cannot believe this is real and wonders if he actually came. He is nervous, wondering if he will be able to fit in, and feels his heart racing. He has not even properly digested the whole situation yet. Ha-Yeon had promised that if he got into that school, he would have the chance to reunite with a friend from the past. Gio takes a deep breath, trying to accept that he is finally there. He is left without a reaction, feeling butterflies in his stomach and almost throwing up from nervousness. Meanwhile, the girls whisper to the side, saying he is very cute. The guys already want to know if he is good at sports. Gio feels like everyone is looking at him. Earlier, Ha-Yeon warned him that she would give him his first mission. She spent a few days planning it and decided this would be the very first one. That is when Gio pulled a uniform out of the bag. Hyeji immediately recognizes it as her school uniform. She says that starting the next day, he will study at the same school as Hyeji as part of the mission. A radio announcement begins playing in the courtyard. All the students start walking over there. They start talking to Gio about a million different things. The boy feels completely suffocated by the crowd. Ha-In said he does not act like a normal person and needs to learn how to blend in to help with the investigation. He needs to act like an ordinary guy. Gio drills it into his head that under no circumstances can they suspect he is a mutant, but he freezes and has no idea what to do in front of the entire class. He even thinks they have already figured out his secret. In that instant, Taegu slams his hand on the desk and orders everyone to stop. He warns the crowd that they are talking too much and scaring the new kid. Taegu explains that Gio came from a neighboring town and does not use social media. He adds that the boy quit playing video games and is great at sports. Gio feels relieved to see Taegu helping him out. The big guy lies to the class saying they are childhood friends. He dismisses everyone by saying they need to catch up after so much time apart. Gio thanks him for the help. Taegu says Hyeji explained the whole situation and that he needs to pass as a normal student. He guarantees he knows the school inside and out. He adds that Gio can ask him anything he needs. Except later on, Taegu himself cannot answer a question in class. The teacher mocks him, saying exams are coming up and the boy has not even memorized the basics. He wants to know which bacteria caused the Black Plague, and Taegu complains that the teacher is underestimating him. The big guy confidently guesses that it was obviously COVID. The teacher smacks him on the head, saying the answer is wrong. Gio ends up laughing at the situation. Then the teacher turns around and asks why the new kid does not try to answer. Taegu thinks it is crazy for the teacher to put Gio on the spot like that, but the boy answers without hesitation that it was the Yersinia pestis bacteria. The entire class is surprised by the answer. The teacher tests him again, asking about the Indian social hierarchy, and Gio answers that it is the caste system. Everyone is left wide open in shock as he gets every question perfectly right. The teacher admits that it is unbelievable. He says he has never seen a student answer so quickly and asks for a round of applause for the new kid. Gio gets completely embarrassed by the attention. Meanwhile, Taegu is confused, thinking the boy was dumb. Later, he asks how Gio knew all that. He also wants to know about the incident the boy mentioned in class. Gio answers with complete calm that he has no idea either. Taegu completely fails to understand the answer. He immediately questions how the guy did not know the subject and still got everything right. Gio explains that back at the lab, the scientists let him borrow textbooks. He says he just read the books over and over again, and that thinking about making friends at school made him happy while reading. Taegu starts crying out of pity, realizing the boy memorized entire books just because he had nothing else to do with his life. He wonders what kind of difficult life that was. The next class is physical education. Taegu promises to show him something much more fun than reading. They head to the middle of the school court. The teacher announces they are playing dodgeball today. Since it is a joint class, they have to split into 2 teams. Taegu calls class 1 a bunch of losers, and the kids from class 2 immediately fire back. Gio asks what dodgeball is. Taegu explains the basics. He just has to throw the ball from his zone and dodge any attacks aimed at him. He tells Gio not to worry and just trust him. But a split second later, a ball slams right into his face. The students from class 2 burst out laughing at him. Taegu tries to play it off and claims the hit only tickled. But this is no time to worry about him. In the end, Gio is the only one left standing on the court. Dodgeball is not exactly his strong suit, but the rules are simple. He just needs to throw and dodge the ball. The catch is that he must use only half of his raw physical strength. He tries to remind himself to hold back. Gio repeats this over and over in his head. He keeps wondering how to actually use just half of his power. An opponent readies a pitch and warns him to pay attention. The guy throws the ball with full force. Gio spots the ball speeding toward him. He dodges the attack with absolute ease. He keeps trying to figure out how to control his own power. He mutters this to himself while effortlessly dodging every single ball thrown his way. The whole class stares in shock, saying he plays like a professional. The new student is completely insane, especially since he dodges every attack without even moving his legs. He makes the entire second class look like absolute fools. Taegu whispers for him to stop showing off. This is not exactly what he had in mind. Gio gets confused and asks if he is doing it wrong. In that brief moment of distraction, a ball slams straight into his face. The boy who threw the ball gasps for air, completely exhausted. The class panics, thinking the throw was way too brutal. Gio immediately gets a bloody nose, but he just laughs it off and assures everyone he is fine. A friend nudges Hyeji. She points out how handsome the new student is and how naturally gifted he is at sports. Hyeji agrees and notes that he is adapting to the school incredibly well. The afternoon passes. Taegu asks how his first day of school went. He admits that keeping Gio's secret is far from easy, but he reminds his friend to just ask if he ever needs anything. Gio looks down and nods. He realizes that no one is trying to control him here. People are free to say whatever they want. Even in the cafeteria, a person can buy whatever they want as long as they have money. He confesses that this entire experience still feels incredibly strange, but at the end of the day, he genuinely had fun. He knows he would have never experienced this life if he had not met the two of them. He deeply thanks them for everything. Taegu immediately cuts the emotional tension. He tells Gio to stop being so sappy because there is still a lot left to teach him. Somewhere else in the city, some gangsters approach asking if there is any news from the lab. They do not realize the merchandise was diverted. They mention they only need a few more days pretending to be good guys and the job is done. But suddenly one of them tells the others to wait. He wants to know who that guy is over there. The young man says they arrived early and he did not even have time to finish eating. The gangster orders his men to get the beggar out of the way. The young man struggles to break free and warns them that he is not done with his soup yet. The gangster asks what is wrong with this lunatic. The young man comments on his face. He asks why it was so hard to see. Then he takes off his sunglasses and says it is much better this way. The gangster throws a direct punch to his face. He warns the guy to get lost while he is still being nice before he loses his life. But in reality, the gangster shatters his entire hand on impact. The young man tells him to stop whining like a baby and stands up right after. He says he knows they are coming back from the lab with money and asks how much it is. The heart of rock activates in that exact moment. Do Young Kong warns them that he will take that as payment. Meanwhile, at a school soccer game, Gio thinks that it has already been a week since he started attending classes. The first mission the leader gave him was to act like a normal person and adapt to an ordinary life. At first, he was afraid his identity would be discovered. This led him to act strangely, and because of that, he could not enjoy anything. But after studying and eating with boys his age, he realizes something. School is much more fun than he imagined. Taegu passes the ball toward him. Gio thinks about how hard it is to believe he can run and play freely again. He traps the ball on his chest and gets ready to kick, but he trips right at the last second and falls flat on his back. The others make fun of him and say he is terrible at this. Now Gio truly just looks like a normal person. He feels so happy that he even forgets his life as a fugitive. All this was thanks to Hyeji and Taegu. On the way back home, he mentions that the chicken skewers smell amazing. It is as if the savory aroma were hitting him right in the face. They keep walking and talking. Taegu warns him that if he keeps drooling, he will eat everything himself. Gio replies that he wants to share with the puppy. But the girl warns him that dogs cannot eat anything with so much seasoning, until a strange noise echoes from the alley. Kang complains that he is starving because he spent too much of his power. There were more gangsters than he expected. After fighting all night, he has no strength left to even walk. He desperately needs to eat something. Then he notices a flower bed right ahead. He reaches out to grab it since his power can turn that into energy. But Gio suddenly appears and stops him, saying he cannot eat that. The young man defends himself, saying he was not trying to eat dirt, but Gio ignores him. He warns him that he tried doing that before and it went terribly wrong. He says it is much better to eat plants. Hyeji approaches and says he should not eat those things either. Kang explains that he misunderstood and he is not homeless, but he realizes that this is exactly what they thought of him. A strong smell suddenly invades his nostrils. He asks if he can have a little bit of the skewer. Gio thinks to himself that he hasn't even taken a bite yet. Looking at that guy is like looking at himself in the past, and just like Hyeji did, he feels he should show a little kindness. So he offers the guy a bite. Kang opens his mouth eagerly. He eats the entire skewer shamelessly right in front of the protagonist. Right after that, he lets out a loud burp and lets out a sigh, saying it feels like he came back to life. He gives thanks for the food while Gio keeps complaining about his lost skewer. The young man guarantees he will return the favor. He pulls out a bag full of money and holds it in his hand. Everyone wonders if he wasn't homeless after all. Kang hands it over and says that this should be enough to pay for it. He steps forward to grab the money, but the bag vanishes from in front of him in the blink of an eye. Two thieves ride past on a motorcycle and take the bag of money. They keep accelerating and robbing everyone along the way. Hyeji warns that she will call the police immediately, but she gets distracted and wants to know where everyone went. The three of them run off screaming that they will not let them take the money. The thieves see that they are being followed and mock them, thinking no one on foot will catch up to a motorcycle. Gio decides he will chase the guys alone. Taegu thinks fast and knows that if he uses his power there, it will be a problem if there are witnesses. So he grabs onto Kang's pants to get in the way. He questions what the brat is doing. Gio sees that the street is empty and no one is watching. He takes the chance and activates his mutant heart. He starts running at the same speed for a few seconds, but the pace changes completely right after. The thug looks back very quickly. He realizes that the protagonist is running like a madman and catching up to the motorcycle. He is in shock and wonders how a guy can keep up with their speed. At this, Gio leaps to try to grab the bag, but the thieves manage to dodge it by a hair. Gio hits the ground and rolls backward. The guys wonder what kind of crazy person that was, and if they had managed to escape. But the thief gets an even bigger scare. The distance is not increasing, and he realizes that this bastard is not a normal person. His partner looks up looking for a way out. He notices that there is a giant pile of bricks nearby. They try to knock the pile down by hitting it to hit the kid. The bricks lose their balance and start to collapse. The protagonist is caught by surprise right in the face of danger. A cloud of smoke explodes on the ground covering the street. The thief flips the bird and screams "good riddance," but amidst the dust and rubble, the protagonist gets up complaining of a headache. He says he has to catch them no matter what, but the people around him stare in confusion. Soon a whole crowd forms around him. Meanwhile, in another location, the thieves park their motorcycle. They mention they finally have a clear path, and they manage to gather a decent amount of cash this time. But suddenly Kang appears right in front of them and lands a direct hit on the guys. The two thieves are completely startled. They lose their balance and start falling off the motorcycle until they slam face first into the ground. Kang asks why they are running away so desperately. He explains that as long as he touches the ground, he can feel everything anyway. The crowd nearby starts wondering if he is some kind of mutant. Kang warns that the money does not belong to them, so they better hand it all over right away. The thief tells him to cut that crap, and warns that it does not matter if he is a mutant because he surely does not have armor on his stomach. In that instant, the other guys start revving their motorcycles. The thief laughs and says that place is their hideout. He says it is the perfect moment and they will end up selling Kang too. Kang just asks if that is really what they wanted. Then he touches the ground and notes there are actually few guys there. His stone heart begins to react. The vibration of the entire earth gathers straight into his hand. The bikers start charging at him, but suddenly, the ground begins to shake with massive force. It looks as if an earthquake is happening. They are left confused because even pillars start sprouting from the ground. Kang warns he will bury that entire hideout with everyone inside, and right after he closes the crack that opened up. Far from there at the police station, the secretary hands a file to the team leader. He informs her that those are the details on the target she had requested earlier. Yane notes it is about the construction company suspected of having ties to the research lab. She notices the team leader appears to be quite young and thinks she should call Gio. The secretary asks if the guy in the file is a relative of that boy, but she replies that no one knows for sure. She says he could very well be the friend Gio is looking for, or maybe it is not him, but it is a clue. Her instinct tells her he is definitely the friend of Gio. Back at the office, Gio enters shouting and demanding to know if she found his friend. She tells him to calm down because she still is not certain of anything. She compliments how well the uniform fits him and asks how things are at school. Gio says everything is going great, but being at school makes him miss his friends even more. But he cuts the topic short and wants to know what she meant by finding his friend. She hands over the paperwork and explains they are investigating a target who is the same age as him. She asks him to take a look and see if it is the friend he is searching for so badly. Gio takes the papers and analyzes the face of the guy in the photo. Then he realizes and says that is the homeless man he saw earlier. He remembers that the guy ate his whole chicken skewer earlier. The girl explains that his name is Dongwook Kang. Gio says he does not recognize the face at all. He explains his eyes were bad in the lab and did not regenerate, but guarantees he would know his friend if he saw him in person. He states he has never seen that name or face, until he realizes what might be happening. He asks her to wait a moment. He notes that this ability to turn to stone is very specific. That power belonged to Do Young Kang, his friend from the lab. With that power, It has to be him. Geo asks if the man in the picture really uses rock-based powers. She confirms and says the ability is called Rock Heart. Geo asks where this guy is now. Hien explains he is working with the lab just like Chaewon. She says that is probably how he became the boss of a multi-million-dollar construction company. She says it is just circumstantial evidence for now, but she is certain of the connection. Geo repeats the fact that he is in the same boat as Chaewon. Hien asks if he is up for the mission she prepared. A smile spreads across Geo's face. He replies that she can be absolutely sure of it. She explains there is a construction labor company called Hodan Construction. Do-hyung Kong is the boss of that company. She says he will go undercover to the construction site where Do-hyung Kong is currently working. The goal is to find his friend inside, and then find out what kind of deal he has with the lab. But she warns him to keep in mind that his friends have changed. Do-hyung is much more deeply involved with the lab than Chaewon was. She tells him to stay alert and question everything. She notes it will be even better if he can convince Do-hyung to switch sides. That way, the lab that hides and exploits test subjects will lose its power, and they can finally bring the whole truth to light. The scene cuts, and Taegu gets startled in the middle of his work. He reflects that he promised to help Geo find his friend, but never imagined he would have to do brutal manual labor. Geo asks if his friend is okay. He says he appreciates the help, but the guy does not need to work himself to death. Taegu brushes it off, claiming it is a piece of cake and that Geo should not worry. He reminds him they are infiltrating his friend's company and tells Geo to just trust him. Taegu asks where exactly they are going to find the guy, and Geo confesses he has no clue where he is. The guy panics. He realizes the plan was just to search the massive construction site all day until they stumbled upon the target. Geo innocently asks if there is a problem with that. Taegu says they will never find him like that and should just ask the workers. He says they just need to kiss up to the older guys. Right then, one of the site managers angrily crushes a can. He grumbles that they gave the kids a job and they are already slacking off. The manager yells that they should know everyone there is busy. He claims the problem with kids today is that they always run like dogs when things get tough. And he tells Geo to stop running with heavy loads so he does not trip and get hurt. The manager orders them to move all the material in an hour and says they can leave if they fail. The two boys agree on the spot. The workers walk away complaining they never should have hired kids for the job. Taegu complains the guys did not even give them a chance to ask anything. He figures they need to finish the job before trying to talk, and he wonders how they are supposed to move that mountain of debris in just an hour. Geo says the guy yelled at him for running with the load and decides that since he cannot run, he has another solution. He decides to simply put a lot more weight on his back at once and walk slowly. Taegu panics and warns him that it weighs about 160 kilos, something no normal person can lift. The construction workers are surprised by what they see. They stare in awe at Geo moving so fast. He tells them he is just walking very fast. Taegu runs after him, asking him to wait. They wonder where this absurd strength comes from. Then Taegu announces they have moved all the cement. They finish everything in less than an hour, and Taegu wants to know what to do next. One of the workers comments that they have energy to burn. He points out there is more cement on the other side, but before he finishes his sentence, Geo is already running. He flies past all the workers with the cement bag. The men become increasingly shocked. Soon they announce that they are done moving the cement. They ask how else they can help. They start working with the cement. They hand the tools to the workers. They even carry all the wood by themselves. The men change their minds and comment that unlike most young people, these two are hardworking and fast. Someone says that if every kid worked like this, they would be welcomed with open arms. Suddenly, one of the power cables starts whipping through the air. The wire moves dangerously as it disconnects. A young man yells for everyone to step back. Mr. Song is almost struck directly by the cable, but Geo steps in front of it right away. Song yells out his name in worry. Geo withstands the energy discharge without a problem. Finally, someone manages to turn off the power. Geo sits on the ground. Everyone gathers around him to see if he is all right. Geo says he is fine and did not get shocked while thinking that was a close call. Since the current was not that strong, he did not get burned, but he almost revealed he is a mutant. The workers tell him they owe him one now. They start treating Geo extremely well because of this. Geo thinks it is good that things worked out, but realizes construction sites are far more dangerous than he thought. He understands why they are always on edge, even though they are good people deep down. Taegu notes that the guys should respect them enough by now to answer a few questions. He knows asking directly will make them look suspicious, so they decide to be subtle. Taegu asks if there is any place nearby with guys their age, but the workers get confused and ask about his own age. They say Taegu looks like he is at least 30 years old. Taegu grumbles that he is 17, and Geo explains they are looking for a company with guys in their 20s. The workers mention that Hoden Construction has several employees like that. Geo asks where they can find those guys. The workers explain it is a brutal place, but they make a lot of money because the job is twice as exhausting. Taegu asks where these people hang out. Then one of the workers points and says they are arriving right now. A white van pulls up next to them. A man steps out of the vehicle. Taegu finds his clothes strange. He does not understand how construction workers can afford luxury clothes like that. They are wearing expensive brands from head to toe, and Taegu really wants to find out how much money they are making. Taegu draws attention once again. Do-hyung steps out of the car right after. He takes off his glasses because he instantly recognizes someone. He mentions that Gio is the guy who gave him the chicken skewer. They had already bumped into each other before all of this. Gio remembers his time at the lab. He figures he knows that guy better than anyone else. It has been over 10 years, and because of that, he says they have met before. Do-hyung says it really is a small world. Gio replies that it is no coincidence and that he already knew he worked there. Do-hyung acts surprised and asks how he knows that. Gio decides that starting today, he will join his company and unearth everything. He wants to uncover the suspicious connection between him and the lab, regardless of whether he works for them or is being blackmailed. In the end, they will be friends again, just like the old days. Now, inside an office, Do-hyung tries to grasp the situation. He asks if the two came all the way out there to join the firm. He appreciates the intention, but warns that things are not that simple. Gio thinks he already expected that answer since he has always been a man of strict principles. So he states that the boss will soon realize just how much he needs him. Do-hyung fails to understand what he means by that. Gio tells him he will show it in practice. He gets up from his chair while everyone else remains clueless. Gio moves the cup and folders around on the desk. This catches Do-hyung completely off guard. After all, the kid starts rearranging everything in the room. Taegu asks what he is doing and tells him he cannot just touch the belongings of others. The other guys also stand confused by the scene. To finish it off, Gio pushes a cabinet to the side. He announces that the job is done and explains that this is the most efficient way to use the space. The guys start complaining, but Do-hyung raises his hand, calling for silence. He asks Gio to explain why that setup is more efficient. Gio says he is right-handed, so the coffee needs to be on the right side. He also adds that the folders must follow the order of their arrival dates. Meanwhile, the pen holder stays in a corner where it is not in the way, but remains within immediate reach. Do-hyung asks the reason for moving the cabinet. Gio explains that the furniture blocked the window, giving a direct view of the construction site. He notes that for a boss who needs to manage everything, that view is essential. The others shout that this is a joke, and that they organized it all like that for a reason. Gio fires back, saying that if they actually knew anything, the accident today would not have happened. He clarifies that efficiency is not just doing things fast, but creating an environment anyone can grasp instantly to react in times of danger. He claims that this is how real efficiency works, and it is the only way to prevent accidents. Do-hyung agrees and notes that they did not even realize something had gone wrong at the site. He asks if the site manager even knew about the accident. The manager answers that he still has not seen the official report, and Do-hyung asks if he needs a piece of paper to see what is right in front of him. He says they should just look at the materials scattered across the floor, or notice the missing workers. The boss states that he should have known about the issue just by looking at the delay in the schedule. After delivering that brutal scolding, he points his finger at Gio. Gio stares at his finger without saying a single word, but Do-hyung cracks a smile. He bursts into laughter and says Gio just pointed out a massive blind spot that even he missed. He decides it is time to reassess everything from scratch while Gio thinks about how he was the one who taught him that in the past. Do-hyung organizes the stretchers and says the work becomes much more efficient this way. The protagonist gets excited and mentions he was worried about the team getting hurt and also wants to learn how to do that. Do-hyung looks a bit shy and offers to teach him how things work around there. Back in the present, he points at the protagonist and announces he starts at the company today. He explains he needs to step out to take care of some things and wants to see all the paperwork done by the time he returns. Gio bows his head in thanks, and Taegu gives him a compliment. The protagonist notes he knows Do-hyung better than he realizes, and now just needs to figure out what kind of business he is running with the lab. Taegu notices that even so, the atmosphere is far from welcoming. All the guys around them are absolutely furious. An hour later at the construction site, the tension lingers. Taegu complains they are stuck doing the heavy lifting until the boss comes back, and Gio replies that this is already a huge victory for him. But a worker kicks the pipe and asks who told them to place it like that. He tells them the piece should be facing the other way. Gio defends himself and says they just did exactly what he ordered, but the guy tells him to shut his mouth and flip the pipe already. Another hour passes after that. The worker kicks the pipe again and asks why they are laying the drainage pipe now. Taegu fails to understand what the guy is trying to pull. The worker complains they have not even leveled the slope yet, and no one told them to lay the pipe first. Taegu insists they only followed the exact orders he gave them earlier, but the man grabs his shirt and asks if he is talking back and tells him to get lost if he does not like it. He tells Taegu to stop whining and tear everything out within an hour. Taegu glances to the side right after. He catches the guy flashing a mocking smirk. It becomes clear these guys are messing with them on purpose. This makes Taegu even more infuriated with the situation. He tells Gio he is going to the bathroom. On his way there, he overhears the workers laughing. They say Gio is just a brat acting like he owns the place. They complain they already have too many mouths to feed and should not be splitting their cash with some kid. They figure the foreman is on their side anyway. Taegu bangs on the door and calls out their cheap talk. He tells them they are dead wrong if they think he will just sit back and take this, and promises to knock some sense into their heads. Everyone wonders when the kid sneaked up to the door. Taegu grabs one of the guys by the shirt and says they are completely sabotaging the job. The giant guy says he really wants to beat him to a pulp, but cannot do it. Taegu fires back, saying he started the provocation and that he also knows how to use his fists very well. Another guy steps in to break it up and warns them not to start a fight. He says the kid does not even know the basics and should be thankful he got hired because of his friend. Taegu gets even more irritated by the sheer audacity of the guy. He demands to know if the guy thinks they are the only ones working and if he thinks he is stronger than everyone else. The worker replies that if that is the case, they can settle this another way. He challenges Taegu to settle everything with an arm wrestling match. He promises that if Taegu wins, they will show respect and stop bothering them. Taegu thinks this suddenly turned into a very childish game, but he knows the guy picked the wrong person to challenge. He is absolutely sure he will turn that mocking look into pure regret in a matter of seconds. But Taegu has his arm slammed against the table before he can even react. The young man is left completely bewildered. He tries to process what just happened. The opponent is truly skilled. If this were a real fight, he would be screwed. The guy announces that both of them need to resign now that he has lost. The rules are clear. The loser packs his bags and leaves. Taegu realizes this was their plan all along. His arm hit the table only once, but the pain is unbearable. To make matters worse, the man squeezes his hand even harder. He warns that they are going for another round. Taegu raises his free hand and apologizes. He says he accepts defeat, but his friend will not agree to this. That is why they should try to settle the situation another way. The worker says he will handle the friend himself, but Taegu warns that it will do no good. No one there will be able to break that guy's stubbornness. Taegu knows that if Gio gets involved, he will destroy them all. He begs them to just let the matter go. But the guys state that it does not matter if they leave on their own. They are leaving either way because they will have their hands crushed right there. The man starts slamming Taegu's hand on the table repeatedly. Taegu cries from the sheer pain. The aggressor raises his arm to slam his hand one last time. In that instant, Gio places his hand on the table. The atmosphere in the room shifts immediately. Everyone is left speechless. Taegu calls out Gio's name. Gio announces that his arm wrestling rules are different. He challenges the guy to a real match. The group that was previously serious erupts into laughter, but Gio maintains a cold expression. Taegu says they are nothing but a bunch of cowards. The guys declare that the rules have changed and the hospital bill will fall on the rookie. The brute claims he was going to go easy out of pity for his friend, but has now changed his mind. He warns that Gio's arm might actually end up broken. The two lock hands and prepare themselves. The man thinks he is dealing with a stupid kid who does not understand the danger. He decides he will cripple Gio's hand to teach him and his partner a lesson. He loudly declares that the match will end in a second, but Gio slams the guy's arm against the table in the blink of an eye. The bone in the man's arm snaps in half. The guy starts screaming in agony. The rest of the group is completely shocked by the scene. Gio orders the guy to return to the starting position. He states that the match is not over yet, and continues slamming the man's broken arm against the table. The guy drops to the floor rolling in pain while clutching his hand. The other guys panic and scream for Supervisor Joe. They charge at Gio all at once. Gio does not even change his expression in the face of the attack. He takes down both of them using only one hand, until another guy strikes his back with a wooden club, but he takes a punch in return. The impact throws him backward. His colleagues manage to catch him. The foreman says Gio is not normal. He orders everyone to rush him at once, but a voice orders all the idiots to stop right there. The delinquents freeze completely. Gio just turns his head. Dong-young has just arrived at the scene. He asks what the hell they are doing. One of the men tries to explain himself, but Dong-young smashes his head against the wall. The man begs for mercy, and Dong-young tells them they should train instead of bullying others. Taegu realizes that if the situation escalates, Gio might get fired. So he lies and says it is all a misunderstanding and they were just arm wrestling. But Gio cuts through the lie and states that the guy was hitting his friend first. Dong-young replies that he already knows since this is not the first time they do this kind of thing, but he warns that Gio has also crossed the line this time. He orders Gio to look at the state he left the men in. Gio retorts that his friend is in the exact same state, and Taegu has a hand so swollen he cannot hold a thing. He explains he had to strike back just as hard, so they never mess with them again. Dong-young notes that the boy keeps talking back to the bitter end. He states he has been lenient so far, but Gio is practically begging for a beating. Gio replies that he does not want to get beaten, but has to speak up up because nothing changes if he stays quiet. Dong-young realizes the striking similarity of the situation. It reminds him of the past when he himself said the experiments would continue no matter what. Geo repeats that silence changes nothing. He declares he can endure anything but will never stand by and watch a friend get hurt. Dong-hyung admits the boy strongly reminds him of his past self. Taegu laments that they are getting thrown out on the street. But Dong-hyung asks where he got that idea and states that Geo will not just run away after causing trouble. Geo is surprised to hear this. Dong-hyung explains that the man with the broken arm is going to the hospital and someone needs to cover his shift. The foreman interrupts and suggests the other guys can take the shift instead. But Dong-hyung tells him to shut up and warns that he is hanging by a thread to keep his temper. Geo asks if he just needs to do the job in place of the injured man. Dong-hyung tells him not to worry about the details and just show up at 5 in the morning because he will train the boy himself. The next day at the agreed time, Geo assumes it must be some lab secret. He tries to imagine what kind of work they have planned until Dong-hyung spots him. Dong-hyung orders the boy to follow him because they are heading deep underground. He presses the button of an old elevator. Geo wonders if there really is a basement down there. The old freight elevator descends into the sublevels, and Geo tries to figure out what the man is hiding. Dong-hyung asks if the boy is nervous, and Geo admits he is just a little. Dong-hyung jokes that yesterday he did not care about confronting the boss, but now he seems to be losing his nerve. Geo firmly replies that he simply cannot stand watching a friend face such cowardice. Dong-hyung agrees and says that is far better than those idiots who are all talk, but he seriously warns that Geo must never pull a stunt like that again. He makes it absolutely clear that if he causes any trouble down there, he will not leave alive. The elevator finally reaches its destination. Dong-hyung announces they have arrived. Geo notices that beneath the construction site lies an endless underground tunnel. He wonders what the guy is planning to do with the lab. Dong-hyung says everything he sees here is a corporate secret. He orders Geo to move all the barrels to the designated areas. Geo asks what is inside and Dong-hyung tells him not to ask questions. He demands that all barrels be moved by the end of the day without complaint since it was Geo who beat up his men. He turns his back and tells Geo to start working. Geo smiles in relief, feeling good to see his old partner after so long, and almost reveals who he really is. But first he needs to find out what they are plotting, and only then will he reveal his identity. He focuses on the barrels, really wanting to know what is in them. They are tightly sealed and clearly should not be opened, but he decides to force the lid anyway. He rips the lid off with extreme ease, and soon notices the contents inside. He instantly recognizes that chemical smell from the lab. He sticks his hand into the liquid to feel it. He knows that if he absorbs it into his blood, he will find out what it is. He gets startled in that instant. It is the exact same feeling as when they threw that at him before. His arm comes out of the barrel completely disfigured. He realizes it is the same toxin used in the experiments on him. He wonders what Kang Dong-hyung is plotting. He thinks he needs to warn Hye-in fast since this is proof of a connection. In another room, Dong-hyung watches everything through the cameras. His hands start turning into stone. He mutters to himself that he already figured the new guy was not just an ordinary punk. Now he knows he is a real mutant. The fact he opened the barrel shows he might belong to some organization trying to steal the chemicals. He decides he will find out everything as soon as his men catch him. He warns over the radio that the intruder's power is regeneration and orders his men not to hold back. He wants to find out the exact limit of this healing and states that he will finish the guy off himself in the end. Geo wonders what Dong-hyung is trying to do with all this. He realizes the guy knew from the start and approached him on purpose. He thought Dong-hyung was just a naive idiot, but he was dead wrong. It becomes clear that Dong-hyung knows him better than he thought and even manipulated his emotions carefully. He was closely analyzed, which proves his infiltration was already expected. Geo admits he has no idea what the guy really wants. Suddenly the door opens and a bunch of thugs show up. Geo realizes he chose the wrong target to mess with. The guys tell him to bring it on and say they already know everything. He is surprised by their reaction. He asks what is going on, and they mention they saw everything on the camera, and they curse him as a mutant bastard. They all charge at him at once, but Geo sends the first one flying away with a single strike, and begins dropping them one by one without mercy. Dong-hyung wonders if he is a mutant with body reinforcement. The protagonist realizes he has no other choice. If the path is blocked, he just needs to push through with brute force. He then sends one of the delinquents flying. Everyone is completely terrified by the scene, but the protagonist gives them no chance to fight back, until several of them manage to pin him down. They smash a bat right into his face. Geo takes hit after hit without a pause. The man says his ability is regeneration and warns that his bat also breaks bones, but the protagonist lands a solid punch right in his face. He tosses the guy away with absurd ease. Dong-hyung thinks this strength is enough to take down a man, but feels he still has not shown his full potential. He knows this will happen soon. Another man charges at him using chains. Several of them start holding the protagonist down again, then they begin tying him up with the chain, pinning down every part of his body. The thugs notice he is starting to get up. Another guy readies a knife and orders the group to hold him on the ground. The plan is to cut his nerves so he cannot move. He then starts stabbing the boy multiple times. Just as he readies the next stab, the man is completely shocked because he has already hit him dozens of times, yet his face does not even flinch. It is something completely inhuman. Geo touches his finger to the ground. He activates his resurrection heart. All the blood on the floor starts moving toward him. Dong-young notices something strange. He is absorbing all the blood scattered around. With all this happening at once, his body begins to regenerate. The healing is much faster than the damage he was taking. It is an incredible regeneration speed on a very rare level. Furthermore, he gets stronger the more blood he absorbs. He looks like a runaway train, and Dong-young desperately wants to know what kind of heart he has. Geo braces for combat. He disappears in a split second. He strikes the face of another thug. The other guys also go flying away. Geo keeps taking them down one by one. The blonde man thinks this kid is way too fast, but the protagonist already appears right in front of him. He lands a heavy blow straight to the chest of the man. The man instantly coughs up a lot of blood. He falls right into the arms of his comrades. Geo dodges another attack from the group. He grabs the ground with immense force and tears up the entire floor. The crowd thinks it is madness as he tears up the concrete slab. Geo prepares to throw the slab. He hurls the piece of concrete right at them. The delinquents freeze in shock. They can only raise their arms to try and defend themselves. In that instant, a massive cloud of dust rises everywhere. The dust slowly settles and reveals that the guys are completely unharmed. Geo maintains a very serious expression. A stone hand shatters the concrete right there. It is Dong-young who appears standing in front of him. Dong-young says he wants to ask a question. He wants to know what kind of heart the boy has. The giant mentions he has seen heart mutants before, but healing wounds in less than a second is something new. Just from that ability, he realizes the kid is high level and has a heavily enhanced body. When it comes to regeneration, only one kid comes to his mind. But that boy had a very weak ability, and most importantly, that kid died in a bomb explosion. Geo just stands there without saying a word. Dong-young takes the silence as a definitive answer. He warns that he will have to teach him some manners by force. Geo dodges the strikes with great ease. He thinks it is too early to reveal who he really is, and he still needs to uncover the connection this guy has to the lab. That is why he decides to keep his suspicions about Kang Dong-young until the end. Geo keeps dodging every attack aimed his way. Then Dong-young prepares one final massive punch. He talks about the instant healing ability of the boy. He warns that the kid is dead wrong if he relies solely on that, because the next strike will not just leave a bruise. He says there will not be a single piece of his body left to tell the tale. In that moment, several stone pillars begin to sprout from the ground. The rocks advance straight toward Geo. Geo ends up slamming his back against a large rock. Dong-hyung warns that this is the last chance for the boy. He gathers the stones into his own hand. His fist is covered in a stone armor much thicker than usual. He asks one more time who sent him there. Geo realizes that his foot is completely trapped in the ground. He notes that his legs are also locked in the stones. Dong-hyung sees that he has chosen to stay quiet even with the threat. Then he unleashes a brutal punch straight to the face of the boy. Geo is thrown back with such force that he crashes right through the rock wall. The factory crew is terrified by what they just saw. Dong-hyung remains standing in the same spot. Meanwhile, the head of Geo is torn off and goes flying through the air. The blow was so forceful that his body is split apart. The remaining part of his body begins to fall to the ground. The delinquents are in shock at the absurd violence of that attack. Suddenly, the severed head of Geo starts spouting blood in a strange way. The blood acts like a glue that pulls his head back to his neck. Ultimately, his body completely regenerates in that exact moment. Dong-hyung is shocked to see the guy back on his feet even after having his head ripped off. The protagonist takes advantage of this and delivers a heavy punch to his stomach. This makes Dong-hyung wonder if he is still regenerating and growing stronger. He is thrown back by the force of the blow. Dong-hyung plants his foot on the ground and slowly slides backward until he manages to stop and face the protagonist head-on. He warns him that the attack was no big deal and says that flesh and bone cannot pierce his stone skin. He tells him he will only end up breaking his own arm, but he soon realizes he spoke too soon, because as he spoke, the protagonist's arm was already almost completely healed. This is surprising and makes him remember something. The image of Kim Geo stays stuck in his head. Back then, the boy took hours to heal an arm, but now that face will not leave his thoughts. Meanwhile, this mysterious guy can regenerate instantly even without a head. He decides he cannot mistake that kid for the monster in front of him. He thinks a guy with this level of power must be from some organization trying to steal information about the laboratory. But it does not matter to him who the guy is, because he guarantees nobody will lay a finger on the lab and launches a stone attack. Geo ends up trapped in the middle of the rocks once again, but this time he breaks through it all himself and charges forward. Dong-hyung is left completely stunned by this and takes a direct punch to the face. Even so, he tells the guy to give up because trying to hit him is useless, and warns that either way, the lab will uncover his identity as soon as he is delivered. Gio realizes he was right the whole time. He concludes that this guy has also been selling mutants to the laboratory, and says he will not walk away unpunished for doing so. Dong-young asks what he means by that story, but the protagonist gives him no chance to respond, and lands another heavy punch to his stomach, telling him to look back and face the sins he has committed. Dong-young says none of this makes sense because he will become a billionaire very soon. He warns that he will sell the protagonist's body for the highest possible price. Gio says that being the case, he will forcefully knock some sense into his head, and begins to absorb all the blood scattered across the floor. Dong-young tries to understand what is happening in front of him. An absurd amount of blood is being pulled in all at once. He realizes the guy is increasing his own power, and in that instant takes another blow to the stomach. Dong-young calls him incredibly stupid for wasting such a strong ability like that, and repeats that human bones will never be able to break his rocks. He thinks the fight is becoming ridiculous, but Gio ignores him and keeps hitting him relentlessly. Dong-young warns him that he can throw 1,000 punches, and the result will be the same, and that the only thing breaking here will be the attacker's own hand. Gio prepares to launch another strike, and strikes his ribs with brutal force. In that moment, Dong-young finally feels the pain and wonders why the blows are starting to have an effect. The protagonist moves faster than before, and lands a perfect hook right on his chin. Gio leaves the guy no room to breathe, and says he can strike 1,000 times if he has to. Dong-young quickly realizes he is dealing with an absolute lunatic. He begins to dodge the blows. He notes that Gio does not care if his own body is tearing apart, and that is exactly why he charged in with everything. All of this just to find his weak points. Once a crack appears, it never stops growing. Dong-young tries to counter with a heavy stone strike, cratering the ground right where the boy was standing, but he immediately realizes that Gio is no longer there. Gio strikes his chest again with full force, launching the giant away as if he were nothing. Dong-young simply cannot keep up with that speed. He crouches on the ground and tries to gather himself, feeling an absurd amount of pain in his head. The cracks across his stone skin start to look brutal. He wonders if the boy feels no pain at all. He realizes his mistake and notes that trying to capture the boy alive was pure stupidity. There is no holding back against a monster like that. In response, he starts swallowing rocks straight from the ground. Gio watches closely and tries to understand what is happening. Dong-young has his flesh tearing apart as his heart reacts to the whole process. He screams for his men to get out of there if they still want to live. The men do not think twice and run for their lives. Dong-young gets his heart completely loaded with minerals. His body density reaches its absolute limit. The ground begins to vibrate violently. He clenches his fists and announces that he will uproot everything around them, forming a massive and gigantic boulder. Gio is shocked and wonders how the man can control something so huge. He knows that if that hits him directly, there will not even be dust left of him. His only option is to get out of there as fast as possible. Dong-young screams that this is the end for the boy. Stone walls rise up and trap Gio right in his tracks, crushing the boy from all sides and completely smashing him between the massive rocks. The impact sends jagged stones flying everywhere. Dong-young never imagined a single mutant would force him to use 100% of his strength. He pants heavily and tries to catch his breath, spitting blood onto the ground from the sheer exertion. He thinks about how rich he would be if he delivered the kid alive, but he could not afford to hold back. That is when he notices something very strange straight ahead. Through the smoke, a skeleton rises from the rubble. He can barely believe the boy survived that impact. His torn flesh is still trying to regenerate from absolutely nothing, but Gio suddenly collapses. Dong-young concludes that even such a broken ability must have its limits. He admits that he felt chills thinking the boy was going to stand back up. At least there is still something left to send to the lab. Then the unexpected happens. The skeleton arm begins to move on its own, touching the ground in a completely bizarre way. Dong-young freezes completely and says, "This is impossible." All the blood on the ground begins to flow straight toward the boy. The blood begins to be absorbed by the skeleton arms. Gio charges forward even though he is nothing but bone. Dong-young had never heard of an immortal mutant before. He realizes this is no ordinary regeneration. His ability simply denies death itself. Then the protagonist lands a solid blow right to his abdomen. Dong-young starts coughing up a lot of blood. The impact throws him straight into the warehouse wall. He falls to the ground right after. He coughs violently as the protagonist slowly approaches. Dong-young asks what kind of power that is. He lifts his head and looks up. He demands to know who the guy really is, but suddenly he understands what is happening. He cannot believe his eyes. That skeleton looks just like his friend from the past. He wonders if his friend had not lost his life back then. He asks if it is really him standing there. Then he calls out the name Kim Gio. Dong-young wonders why he hid his ability and tried to infiltrate this company. Gio touches his hand to the ground once more. Dong-young thinks he is focusing his power again. The protagonist prepares to charge with everything he has. He realizes Gio is actually trying to kill him. He knows he cannot survive another hit like that. That is why he screams the name Kim Gio again. He asks if Gio is really going to try to kill his own friend. He tells the idiot to stop hitting him. Geo stops his punch in midair right on time. Later in the company room, Dong-young starts thinking about Kim Geo. He brought the guy to the office to calm things down and talk, but that Geo is not the one he knew, and everything is different from his personality to his abilities. His regeneration is completely insane to the point that the guy is literally immortal. He wonders how much his friend has changed. Then he offers the protagonist some coffee. Dong-young sees the situation as a massive victory since Geo has a soft heart, and keeping a guy like that under his command would be a huge triumph. He thinks he knows his friend very well. He says he thought his friend had lost his life in the past. Dong-young wants to know why he hid his identity and even pretended to be a worker. Geo cuts the talk short and tells him to give him his hand before they speak. Dong-young extends his hand without understanding what his friend wants to do. He mentions that he got hurt a bit earlier when he was scratched, but Geo says he already knows, and that is exactly why he asked for his hand. Then the protagonist begins to concentrate. In a memory of his training with Hien, she asks if he was worried about the Chaewon issue. Geo confirms that was the problem. He wants to know what he should do if a situation like Chaewon happens again. She answers directly that he has to fight. Geo feels that the idea of fighting a friend is too painful since he missed them for years. Ultimately, he wonders if there is no way to convince them by talking, but she tells him to get real. She asks what he really wants. Geo replies that he wants to save the friends tied to the lab. She notes that he is talking about the friends who helped them before. She explains that they cannot be saved with just words, and that they are all high-ranking mutants with important roles. They can kill without a second thought and must already be criminals. She asks if he really thinks people like that will listen to his pleas. The way things stand, he will end up being used instead of helping. Coldly and calculated, they will throw him into the fire and leave him to burn. Exactly like what happened with Chaewon. His friends might need help, but they are also the same ones who can kill him. Geo reflects on the chance of being killed by them. He agrees and says they are no longer the same kids he knew. He realizes he will end up losing the rest of his friends if he keeps acting this way. So he asks what needs to change to save everyone. Hien says she likes his determination, but she warns him that he is wrong about one thing. He needs to change his mindset from the start and stop thinking of them as friends. If he really wants to save everyone, he needs to stand above them. Geo does not understand what she means by that. The girl bites her own finger. She tells him to try absorbing her blood. Back in the present, Geo says he finished what he had to do. He warns the guy not to lie from now on. In that instant, he begins focusing on the target's heart rate. He says he can clearly hear his heartbeat. Dong-kyung does not understand how he is doing that. Geo explains that he absorbed the blood and can hear heartbeats thanks to Hyen's power. She had explained earlier that investigators reported that blood mutants can sense heartbeats. If he can read intentions through heartbeats, he will have a huge advantage in the conversation. Geo asks why the guy works for the lab when they suffered there for 10 years. He demands an immediate answer. Dong-kyung is shocked to realize he really can hear his heart beating. He sees the boy has returned as a complete monster and wonders what happened. The man says he only needs to know one thing. He asks what Geo's goal is. Geo states clearly that he wants to destroy the lab. Dong-kyung spits his coffee and asks if he is serious. The boy confirms and asks the man's level of involvement with the place. Dong-kyung tells him not to be reckless and warns that no one can take down the lab. Besides, he points out that all their friends are trapped there right now. Geo stands his ground and says he will destroy the place and get his friends out. The man says he will not help at all because he does not want to be an enemy of the lab. Geo says he is just taking his information and does not need permission to destroy the place. Dong-kyung grinds his teeth in anger at those words. Fear starts to take over. He ends up handing over all the documents he kept. These were the data he secretly collected inside the base. There is a bit of everything, like facility blueprints, subject code names, and lists of missing people. He hands over photos and diaries, saying that apart from maximum security files, the rest is there, and asks to be left out of the plan. Geo points out that there is something wrong with this story. He says Kang Do-young has too much inside information on the lab. If the intent was not to make enemies out of them, gathering so much material makes no sense. He notes that the moment he mentioned attacking the lab, Do-hyung's heart started racing. It seemed like he was waiting to hear exactly that. In reality, Do-hyung also wants to achieve this goal. Do-hyung is surprised and wonders how he can figure all this out just from a heartbeat. He admits he cannot hide anything from Geo. He confesses that, deep down, that was exactly it. He also wants to bring down the lab but thought it was impossible. The lab is far larger than he imagined, and those guys have connections everywhere. The facilities are located deep underground, totally hidden and out of reach of normal people, and their network of influence is simply insane. Everything is built on the sacrifice of his own friends. They know how to control everyone. They exploit weaknesses and promise rewards as bait to maintain control. That is why he hesitates and asks if Geo still wants to attack, even knowing all this. Geo guarantees he will rescue his friends held in captivity and ensure the lab can never use them again. He states that no matter the size of the enemy, he will not change his mind, but he warns that he needs Kang Do-young's help. Do-young recalls he already tried before and warns that just the two of them will not be enough, no matter how strong they are, but Geo reveals he is not alone in this. Do-young is surprised by the information. Geo asks if he has ever heard of Song Hye-in. Do-young asks if she is the leader of the mutant team. He knows she is the one even the lab avoids contact with, considered the strongest mutant in history. He does not understand why this monster's name is coming out of Geo's mouth. He asks if she is backing the plan, and Geo confirms, saying he can meet her right now. Do-young thinks that if she is the one providing support, maybe it will be possible to convince his friends, especially since Kim Jo was close to all of them. He knows it is madness, but wonders if he can really trust him. Geo simply asks him to believe. The young man sighs, commenting that he appears out of nowhere and turns everything upside down. Then he shakes Geo's hand. He agrees and says they are moving forward, in a completely strange and grim location elsewhere. A man calls for test subject 0032, Lim Na-rin. He says she is the regeneration subject destined to replace him, and he cruelly warns her that no one is coming to save her. In the office, Hye-in notes that he was a test subject just like Geo. She reveals he currently operates Hoden Construction, a company specialized in foundations and underground works, all done to support the lab, and she asks if she is right so far. Do-young acknowledges she knows a lot and concludes she must have been investigating him from the start. She confirms he was on the suspect list for a while, and they already knew about the fake identity, connected to the lab just like Geo. Do-young states he cannot find this amusing, and that it is not right for the police to use a friend as bait. He warns that she is crossing a dangerous line. The girl laughs and jokes that he is quite cute when angry, looking like a porcupine. Do-hyung gets even more annoyed and asks what she just said. Geo watches and thinks the guy's heart is beating so hard he does not even need a special ability to notice his fear. Do-hyung admits to himself that he is terrified because he is face to face with the leader of the mutant team, someone even the lab is afraid to confront. It is as if she is reading his mind. She mentions hearing that he also plans to attack the laboratory. Do-hyung asks her not to judge him harshly because ultimately they are all targeting the same enemy. Trusting the police is difficult because they can easily use and discard him. She asks what he thinks if she promises not to do that. She assures him that she is much warmer than he imagines. Do-hyung replies that talk is cheap and she has given him no reason to trust her. Hye-in warns that they are getting nowhere. She suggests that maybe he should go to the same place as Chaewon. She reveals that she sent him to prison recently. She says she tried to find a way to clear his name, but the guy simply refused to listen. She adds that he might as well join his colleague behind bars. Do-hyung gets confused and wonders how Chaewon ended up arrested. The two continue arguing until Do-hyung begs for a chance. Hye-in warns that helping the laboratory is a serious crime. She explains that it equates to aiding a terrorist organization and that she could decide his fate right there. But she offers to overlook his past actions as long as he does not cross the line, all because she also wants to destroy the laboratory. Do-hyung promises to help her. Hye-in decides to focus on business and asks for the most useful information he has at the moment. He replies that a friend of theirs needs to be rescued right away and that her ability is highly useful. The girl in the photo is Lim Na-rin. He asks if Geo remembers her. Geo answers that she was a cheerful and kind girl, but Do-hyung counters by stating she was quiet and cold. Their opinions begin to clash. Do-hyung asks what Geo is talking about because Lim Na-rin has always been gloomy, but Geo insists otherwise. He recalls that she used to hug him from behind and ask what he needed, and that they should all play together. Geo remembers telling her that he was hurt. He said his skin was still regenerating and that it must be disgusting, but the girl replied that she liked him anyway. She said that seeing the wound heal made her happy and that she loved it. Do-hyung asks in shock if that rude brat really said that, and this makes everything even more perfect. Hye-in comments that convincing the girl should be easy since she was close to Geo. She says it would be great to rescue at least one more friend from the clutches of the laboratory. Looking at the data, the operation seems quite simple. The vehicles will pass through Silver White Road. The idea is to wait along the route and ambush the trucks, and that is how they will manage to rescue Lim Na-rin. Do-hyung warns that the laboratory might find out if he moves and asks about their protection. Hye-in explains that this is the exact time the police need to block the neighboring roads. She adds that they will cut communications for a while and prevent the arrival of reinforcements. Do-hyung thinks that having police support and a high-ranking officer on their side is very convenient, so he understands the plan and agrees to help. Later they arrive at the agreed road. The two lie in wait behind the mountain. Do-hyung asks again if Lim Na-rin was not a complete psychopath. He says she committed all sorts of wicked acts, but Gio saw that as kindness. Do-young claims she is completely insane no matter how you look at it. He recalls that normally the laboratory would discard someone with a useless ability, but they put up with the girl. Then he asks another question. He wants to know how Chaewon ended up in prison. Gio answers that his criminal record was too extensive for the police to overlook. Do-young notes that rumors say he did all sorts of heavy stuff, so it is no surprise he got busted. He reflects that in recent years without Gio around, a lot has completely changed. A lot happens while he is away, and hearing about him is also a huge surprise. He believes the guy is still alive only because he assumes his heart just has a simple regeneration ability. Gio mentions he also has no idea he would recover this much, adding that his regeneration was quite slow when he was young. Do-young states it is good to see him doing well, especially since he lost touch with most of his friends. He remembers the mutant stun guns and capture tools, along with the sounds of his friends being dragged away. He still remembers everything perfectly, and just hearing the word laboratory makes his body react on its own. He becomes completely terrified, reacting just like the famous conditioned dog of Pavlov. Even now, he feels like he is going to spiral out of control. He then asks if his friend is not afraid of the laboratory. Gio remains silent for a few seconds, but he soon admits that he is also terrified. The problem is that he lost someone right in front of his own eyes. Losing a friend hurts much more than having his own body torn apart. That is why he plans to tear that laboratory out by the roots. He has already felt enough fear, and now he is tired of running. The time has come to erase those people from history. This time, he promises to become the ultimate nightmare for the laboratory. Meanwhile, Hien tracks the cargo from afar using binoculars. She reports that the targets have passed and that they can now block the road. The secretary gives the orders immediately and activates the signal jammer. Do-hyung announces that his group is also ready. Hien reviews the plan, stating they will keep communication to a minimum because they cannot risk being detected by those bastards. Everyone there is counting on the command of Kim Gio. The young man takes a massive leap and heads straight into the action. The truck driver is left completely confused by the scene. He wonders what is falling right in front of him. From afar, Do-hyung tells himself that he will also overcome his own fear. In that instant, he uses his power to mold the stones on the ground. The driver immediately questions if that guy is a heart mutant, but suddenly, all the cars come face to face with a massive wall of rocks, leaving no way out for the vehicles to escape. They end up crashing their cars straight into the wall. Do-hyung notes that the metal is incredibly resistant. Not a single scratch remains on the transport vehicle after the brutal crash. The driver gets on the radio and reports that they are under attack. He screams for the guards to protect the test subject's transport vehicle and to stop anyone from opening the doors. They absolutely cannot let the invaders take the mutant inside. That is when Gio lands heavily on the roof, stating that it is already too late. The driver goes into shock upon hearing that voice. The other guards scream in desperation to lock the doors tight, but the protagonist calmly states that this is not necessary at all. He simply starts bashing the iron door of the vehicle with a jagged rock. The impact is so brutal that his fingers are completely shattered. The terrified guards wonder how that lunatic managed to tear through heavy armor using only his bare hands. Soon, the protagonist shoves both hands into the hole he just created. He uses all his brute force to rip the metal wide open at once. Inside, something specific catches his attention. The coat belonging to Lim Na-rin is tossed aside inside. Suddenly, several armored soldiers start walking toward the truck. They have clear orders to eliminate the invader on the spot. Gio announces he found the girl and they will end this in 5 minutes. Do-hyung presses his hands against the ground with even more force. He creates stone barriers and traps the soldiers, crushing them right on the spot. A few try to flee. They fire relentlessly as they try to analyze the abilities of their targets. Do-hyung is struck by a bullet, but the shooters quickly confirm his hardened skin. Since the ability of Gio remains a mystery, the soldiers shift their focus to him, and they decide to open fire all at once. Gio dodges the gunfire and hides among the vehicles. Then he starts running in the opposite direction. The soldiers shout that the enemy is closing in with the help of the stone mutant. Gio lands a direct hit on a soldier, sinking the glasses deep into his face. He repeats this brutal assault a few more times. The soldiers are thrown back, until a shot lands right in the head of Gio, and they repeat this on his chest and legs. His body is riddled with holes, but he immediately starts to regenerate. He moves fast and strikes one of the agents, sending the man flying before attacking the others. Suddenly, an impact knocks him backward. Several electric harpoons pierce and trap his body. Do-hyung remarks that the weapon is terrifying. In the past, he never cared much about those shock weapons because they could not pierce his wall. But one of the harpoons shoots straight toward him. The electrical system activates, electrocuting Do-hyung instantly. His defensive wall begins to crumble. Back in the present, he raises the stones once more, thinking that his body still remembers that pain. He knows that if he gets electrocuted, he will not be able to use his powers, and he will be left completely defenseless in the fight, except this time he evades the harpoons. He curses himself, and he realizes he does not need to fear these weapons or dwell on the past. After all, the weapons are useless if the generators are destroyed, until an attack hits him hard in the side. He falls and rolls backward. The agents aim at him with explosive ammunition, and they open fire without mercy. Do-hyung covers his face with his hands, and he defends himself from several shots using the rocks. But the harpoons push through the crossfire, and they snare his arm. Do-hyung thinks he is caught for good. His double layer of rock is pierced in one exact spot, but Geo grabs the wires before they can hurt his friend and takes the entire electrical discharge in his place. The soldiers are stunned to see that the regenerating mutant can easily withstand the electrical current. The men decide to keep the power on until they bring him down for good. They crank it to maximum voltage, but soon they notice a terrifying detail. Geo pulls the power cables toward himself. He manages to drag each of the officers along and throws the men away with pure brute force. One of them can't understand how the boy withstands a shock that would kill anyone. Geo complains that it really hurts and warns that they shouldn't use something like that on people. The officer asks where he came from and what he wants. The protagonist answers that he is looking for a friend. The soldier finds the story strange. He says he doesn't know who the boy is looking for, but warns that he picked the wrong fight. The protagonist doesn't waste time, he charges in and finishes the guy. After the fight, Do-hyung suggests tying the officers up. However, the protagonist warns that they don't have time for that. Do-hyung thinks that since they already rescued the girl, they have plenty of time. But he gets a huge scare when he opens the cargo. He sees that the girl isn't inside, and they end up freeing an unknown man. Geo makes it clear that they need to find the girl. He rips off the driver's door with sheer brute force. All this to find out where she is hidden. The driver begs not to die. The protagonist says he knows where she is, and orders him to speak up about the girl who was going to be transported. The intel said she was going to pass through that route, but the men swapped the test subject. Time is running out, so the driver has to speak fast. Geo just wants to know where the girl ended up. She is locked in the temporary mutant detention center. Inside, a scientist reports that the girl is unconscious, but her vital signs are stable. Her pupillary response is weak, and she barely feels any pain. But suddenly a spike starts growing on her body, and it narrowly misses impaling the scientist. Another guy tells him not to let his guard down and warns that even knocked out her body still reacts. She doesn't know what she's doing, but her defense instinct remains active. The guy comments that the speed of the spike creation is actually good, but he makes it clear that he isn't after spikes. He grabs the girl's face and says that what he truly wants is her rapid healing. Her healing isn't as strong as the protagonist's, but it's enough for the experiments. The only rule is not to let the girl die because the results are only valid if she is alive. Right then, one of the scientists calls the director and warns that there's a problem. The first transport team was attacked on the street. The director doesn't understand how they discovered their route. This ruins the plans, and he decides to delay the second team's departure. He announces that everyone is heading back to the lab. Suddenly, all the scientists look up at the ceiling in fear. A giant rock strikes the door of the facility, destroying everything in its path. Geo announces over the radio that he found the temporary base and that the rescue starts now. The doctor immediately realizes that 2 mutants have just invaded their base. The doctor demands to know how they have the nerve to be so reckless. A police officer reports that she is being transferred by Team 2. Do-hyung demands that he hand over the schedule. The man hands over the papers completely intimidated. He says he knows nothing about the mission and was just following transfer orders. Jin says that the person in charge of the case is Supervisor Han Ki-cheol. Back at the lab, the police advance after the intruders. They start shooting at Jin and Do-hyung's hiding spot. Jin says he never expected to see Han Ki-cheol in charge since he used to be just a low-level researcher. Do-hyung admits he had no idea he had climbed the ranks so high. This likely happened because of the incident 3 years ago where several friends were dragged back. Because of this, they decide to split up right there. The enemy's ability is focused on immobilization and capture, and staying together will only slow them down. Jin announces he will rescue Lim Na-rin, while Do-hyung draws everyone's attention. Do-hyung gets annoyed and replies that he understands the logic, but it still hurts a bit. Jin reminds him that he prepared for hell when he decided to come here. He states that rescuing Lim Na-rin is the priority, and offers to swap roles if he disagrees. Do-hyung touches the ground and activates his power, telling his partner to stop talking nonsense. In that instant, several stone fists erupt from the ground. He explains that they both know very well he is better at drawing attention and tells Jin to go ahead. He tells Jin not to worry about this place. The police officers turn to Do-hyung with their weapons drawn. They decide to open fire with everything they have. One of the shots hits Do-hyung right in the forehead. He defends himself using stone and creates a rocky armor over his own fist. He charges forward and announces that this tight space is perfect for his power. The impact sends the police officers flying away. One of the guards shouts that he is a high-risk mutant with rock abilities. They quickly start preparing their ammunition. The officer gives the order to respond with high-caliber weapons. Suddenly, a chain flies toward them. The chain strikes Do-hyung's fist dead on as a voice orders everyone to cease fire. Han Ki-cheol appears and states that they cannot go around taking the life of such a precious test subject. He points out that this is Subject 72, who can manipulate rocks. He calls Do-young by his name as the young man realizes his mask is gone. Han Ki-cheol mentions that after Do-young escaped and was caught 3 years ago, he swore loyalty to the lab. The supervisor declares that he betrayed them again and truly has no salvation. In the past, the supervisor tortured Do-young by squeezing his body with several chains. The boy screamed endlessly, begging to be spared. Han Ki-cheol notes that the boy's stone armor crumbled on its own out of fear and not from any external impact. He says Do-young has a useful ability, but cannot even use it because he is terrified. Even so, he had the audacity to escape. The supervisor concludes that he was only dragged along by the other test subjects because he was too weak to make a decision like that on his own. Ultimately, he warns that the boy will work solely for the lab from now on, and that is the only way he will be spared. Back in the present, Han Ki-cheol taunts him, saying that a coward like Do-hyung would never have the courage to betray the lab on his own. Do-hyung reinforces his stone fist and retorts that no one forced him to do anything. He states that he came on his own 2 feet and uses the chain to pull Han Ki-cheol with all his strength. The supervisor is slightly caught off guard by this attitude. Immediately after, the man unleashes even more chains. He climbs onto the chains and remarks that Do-young only tagged along for the invasion because he was terrified of being left behind again. Do-young tenses up completely when he realizes his attack was blocked. The police push the generator one more time. They start firing their stun guns to try and contain the boy. Do-young quickly notices the shots and tries to dodge. He sprints backward and thinks the guy is an arrogant bastard. The officers keep shooting and order his escape route blocked. Han Ki-cheol throws his spiked ball. The weapon closes in fast on Do-young as he thinks that this bastard always targets his deepest insecurities. He just waits for the exact moment the body of the boy freezes in fear. Then Do-hyung raises a wall of rocks. He remembers that just moments ago he had almost collapsed completely, but the chains wrap around the stone, and they bind the young man once again. Han Ki-cheol asks if he thought a little rebellion would change anything. He says the fear of the boy has not vanished, and he just has not been beaten enough yet. He warns that if the boy learned the wrong lesson, he can very well teach him everything from scratch, and that this time, he will make sure his body remembers first. He flashes a wicked smile. Do-young grabs the wall and tears off a piece. He says the guy is right and that even now he just wants to run away. But he remembers that he already ran away and survived once before. When he turned his back on his friends and did absolutely nothing, his stone heart begins to react with the new rock. The bricks shatter the chain as Do-hyung says that whole situation was suffocating, and that is why he will not run away anymore. Han Ki-cheol asks if he swallowed the bricks to gain control over them, just to create the structure he wanted. Do-hyung charges forward with a giant fist. He says that even a coward wants to save his friends as much as anyone else. The police and soldiers are sent flying away from the impact. They skid across the ground and drop their weapons. Do-young finishes the strike and breathes heavily. The damage caused by the impact is massive. Han Ki-cheol remains completely unharmed and says he used the bricks to scatter shrapnel everywhere, but ultimately caused no damage. He mocks him and says it was so slow it almost made him yawn. Then he asks if the boy thinks he is an idiot. He states that the plan is obvious and the other guy slipped away trying to get Lim Na-rin, and he warns that he already sent a squad after him. Right after that, Do-hyung collapses to the ground. The officers approach to capture him, but the radio calls the director and warns that the internal security team was completely annihilated. Han Ki-cheol stands there confused. The guy on the radio reports that the intruder inside is also a high-risk mutant. Han Ki-cheol tries to process the information. He looks over and sees a smile on the face of Do-young collapsed on the ground, and he realizes that the boy was the real distraction the entire time. He orders the officers to take care of Do-young because he will go after Lim Na-rin himself. In the other area, Geo breaks the chains. He asks her to wake up and says he is there to rescue her. Lim Na-rin looks at him completely confused, but the boy offers a sincere smile until chains shoot straight out of the hands of the director. They wrap around the neck of Geo immediately after. Han Ki-cheol imprisons him completely. He says today is his lucky day because 2 valuable test subjects just fell into his hands. Then he demands to know how the guy dares to infiltrate his lab like a rat. Geo looks back thinking about Han Ki-cheol. He wonders if 3 years have passed already. The touch of the chains brings back that cold and suffocating grip. Han Ki-cheol says he was trash who wastes money. He says it does not matter how much they train the soldiers to deal with mutants because they remain useless. So he wants to know who he is to annihilate a force of that size. And he asks if it is another test subject who betrayed them like Do-hyung. Geo does not answer and just holds the chains. Han Ki-cheol asks what is wrong with him, and if he cannot speak. He thinks the guy froze in fear, while Geo merely looks at him coldly. In the past, he hides in the closet out of fear. Then Han Ki-cheol appears offering a lollipop, and he asks why he is hiding again. He says he must not be afraid because he needs to help his friends. Geo questions this somewhat fearfully. Han Ki-cheol promises that the other children will not go through the experiments if he holds on a little longer. The boy asks if he promises, and Han Ki-cheol guarantees it. The instrument table gets covered in blood, with the lollipop thrown on the floor. Han Ki-cheol analyzes the results and says his friends will be grateful. Geo realizes that everything begins again with him using his friends as bait, only to conduct those terrible experiments later. Han Ki-cheol announces that the next test is the tensile strength of the chains, and he tightens everything while the boy screams. He binds the hands and even the fingers of Geo. This is how he breaks the neck of Geo. He notes that it takes 3 seconds to fracture and that this is disappointing, so he controls the intensity of the impact. Another chain heads straight toward him, striking the body of Geo several times. The chains move fast and trap his arm. Geo only thinks that he prefers to lose his life, so he can take the life of that bastard. But he knows he needs to endure it for his friends. Han Ki-cheol taps his pen and gets a scare. He sees the tip of the chain changing shape. He wants to know how this is possible since the chains are fixed abilities. Then he starts to fixate on the power structure, wondering if the ability breaks its limits and changes shape. He shoots rapidly at the boy, remembering a research paper that says using the heart repeatedly improves power evolution. He thinks that if he can transform the chains into other things, the possibilities will be endless. Thus, he continues to hurt Geo in every way possible, until Han Ki-cheol begins to cry with emotion. He thanks Kim Geo for this. He says that thanks to the boy, he can take a step forward, while Geo only thinks about how he always uses his body to invent new forms of pain. Then he holds firmly onto the chains around his neck. Han Ki-cheol notes that his traits point to a regeneration mutant, but he finds it strange because even a regeneration mutant would try to resist first. Only the boy remains completely frozen. It is not the bindings holding him back, and the moment his body recognizes him, he simply gives up fighting back. That is no normal reaction toward a complete stranger. He demands to know if he has run experiments on him before. Geo seizes the opening and lunges forward. He lands a brutal straight punch right on the researcher's face. Han Ki-cheol is left completely bewildered as the chains shatter. He is sent flying backward from the sheer impact. He tumbles across the ground, spiraling out of control, until his back slams dead into a wall. He collapses on the floor, gasping hard for air. He desperately tries to process what just happened. The boy was definitely bound in his chains right up until the moment he strikes again. Han Ki-cheol is sent flying once more. He tells himself this is impossible. Even for a physical strength mutant, the chains are forged from steel and do not just break from brute force. Then he catches a crucial detail. The chains are violently twisted. He wonders if the bastard did this on purpose. Geo states that chains hold up well against direct pulls, but fail against lateral force. He explains that concentrating all power on a single link makes it snap first. While the researcher was testing every vile method on his flesh, Geo was also learning every detail about his enemy. Han Ki-cheol grinds his teeth in sheer fury. He conjures more chains right out of his own hands. He hurls everything at the boy and warns him not to get cocky just because he broke a few weapons. The chains surge straight for Geo, but he does not even flinch. Han Ki-cheol suddenly reverses the trajectory of the strikes. He shapes the chains into heavy iron balls and sends them crashing down on him. Geo sprints forward with explosive speed. He flawlessly evades every chain in his path, until one of them whips out and clips his ankle. He instantly snaps his gaze downward. Han Ki-cheol mocks the trick of twisting and breaking the chains, but points out that the game changes when they strike from all sides, whether they come from the flanks, from behind, or even sweeping under his feet. He declares there is nowhere left to run, and tells the boy he is nothing special just for snapping 2 links. As the weapons close in, Geo flashes back to the time when he was nothing but a skeleton. He ducks his head and dodges on pure reflex. He propels himself up to dodge a lethal strike from behind, and lands completely ready for the next clash. Han Ki-cheol stares at him in utter disbelief. But Geo reflects that he did not just break a single pair of chains. He remembers the countless chains tearing into his body in the past. All that torment taught him exactly how his enemy moves his weapons and where he leaves gaps in his defense. He remembers every single pattern and snatches a chain right out of midair. Han Ki-cheol freezes in absolute shock. Geo pulls the chain with brutal force. He lets the scientist get close using the momentum. Geo explains he knows how to handle it because he drove those very chains straight into his own body. In response, he slams the scientist face first into the floor. Geo unleashes all his rage into the blows. Han Ki-cheol defends himself using a cluster of chains. He cannot understand how a mutant focused on regeneration possesses such massive strength. Blood splatters from between the scientist and his teeth. Han Ki-cheol jumps back on pure instinct. He says Geo dodges everything and still manages to counterattack. The scientist concludes the boy was definitely one of his former test subjects. Han Ki-cheol asks if he came all this way for revenge or to save his captured friends. He finds the situation amusing and says the boy looks like a discarded test subject. The scientist mentions it is quite rare to see a piece of trash grow so much and become research material once again. He warns he is going to experiment on the boy one more time. Han Ki-cheol asks if the boy thinks he knows everything about him. He says the kid is completely mistaken. The scientist explains he never shows the real data during tests precisely to avoid being stabbed in the back. Han Ki-cheol claims the boy only knows a fraction of what he can do. He throws a saw and says Geo chose the wrong guy to mess with. Geo replies that the faster the saw spins, the easier it is to predict its movement due to centrifugal force. The boy lands a direct punch straight into the scientist in his stomach. The blow makes Han Ki-cheol spit up a massive amount of blood. The scientist tries to comprehend how the kid knows the weak point of those chains. He uses his own chains to absorb the impact and avoid flying backward. Han Ki-cheol had never shown that trick to anyone before. He keeps wondering where the boy got this information. The scientist screams that it was pure luck and will not happen again. Han Ki-cheol launches multiple chains at once in his direction. Geo analyzes the path of each chain in a split second. The boy evades every attack without effort. Geo states the scientist can only change the direction of the attack if the target is within 2 meters. Han Ki-cheol is left speechless and completely bewildered. He wonders how the kid knows yet another secret. In that instant, Geo charges at him with everything he has. The boy lands another heavy punch straight to the scientist in his face. Han Ki-cheol tries to dig through his memory to figure out who this boy actually is. He fails to grasp how a test subject has access to such precise data. The scientist always kept everything in absolute secrecy to avoid this exact situation. He also cannot recall testing anyone with the appearance of that kid. Han Ki-cheol thinks of a regeneration mutant who witnessed all his experiments up close. The image of that small skeleton flashes into the scientist and his mind. Right after that, Geo crushes his body against the floor. Han Ki-cheol lets out a scream of agony upon impact. The entire floor shatters beneath the scientist and his back. Geo pulls his arm back and retreats in the blink of an eye. The boy dodges all the chains trying to catch him on the rebound. He creates distance with perfect and calculated movements. Han Ki-cheol says the boy knows the limits of every chain and even the weak points of the equipment. The scientist realizes no one learns this just by reading stolen documents and understands that the one standing before him is the exact same test subject who survived all the tests. He concludes that it can only be Kim Geo himself. Geo confirms that it is really him. The scientist notes that he is not just immortal, but that his regeneration has never been this fast. He wants to know what happened to the test subject. Geo answers that it is a long story, and that he can tell everything when the guy is in prison. But the scientist starts laughing endlessly. Geo asks what is so funny. The man warns that he cannot hold himself back. He spent a lot of time trying to find this immortal body. And yet Geo came to him on his own, and now he understands why someone like this was so interesting. The old laboratory directors wanted him badly. Geo asks about the older directors. The scientist explains that they were the ones who brought the test subject. But he does not know where they are and does not care about that. After all, that does not matter right now. What matters is that his test subject has returned stronger than ever. He wraps the chains around a pipe and admits that he is no longer the same as before. Ordinary chains will not be enough this time. The next experiment will be something unprecedented. And he states that it is good to see Geo again. He crushes a piece of iron and thinks that if he forces the ingestion, the strength multiplies and the blood coagulates. He will not be able to use chains for a few minutes in exchange for more power. Geo realizes that the enemy is trying to use the full force of the chains and knows he needs to get away. But the scientist advances very fast towards him. He is sure that Geo will be finished before he escapes. The chains attach to the pillars of the place. They cut a part of the face of Geo. The scientist warns that he created an instant laboratory custom made for him, and warns that Geo thought he knew him well, but the researcher also knows much more about the test subject than it seems. Geo tries to move his fist, but the enemy controls the chains and pulls him back. He explains that he locked the muscles of Geo. The chains will cut his body right at the moment of regeneration. This causes direct damage to his bones. He claims that this is the limit of Kim Geo. No matter the strength he gained, the relationship between them has not changed at all. Geo continues to be the test subject, and he is the researcher. It is useless to fight because his heart only makes him immortal. It does not matter if the regeneration is so fast. The resistance of the body does not last forever. Dozens of chains will destroy his body little by little. Trapped there, he can only do one thing. He can only regenerate endlessly and nothing else. This is the weakness of the heart of Geo. But Geo grabs the chain with great strength. Suddenly all the others stop moving. The scientist finds the situation strange right away. He tries to understand how Geo found the main chain. Geo stares coldly at him. He remembers writing on the board that moving thousands of chains one by one was impossible. The main chain is not meant for attacking, and if it swings, the rhythm of all the others breaks. He realizes that was why the guy needed a support chain. Geo repeats this in his head. He warns that he waited for exactly this moment, and then he pulls the chain with brutal force. He says that as soon as he stops the main chain with his hands, the others fall. Han Ki-cheol fails to understand how he did that. All the chains stop moving. The director says he can create more chains. He points his hand at Geo, but the chains do not come out. Geo calls out the name of Han Ki-cheol. He says that in the past he could not do anything. He could only endure everything in silence. But now he gathers all the blood around him. His heart beats in the same rhythm as his power. Han Ki-cheol tries to deny what he is seeing. He runs backward trying to dodge. He shouts that Geo is just a test subject, but Geo punches him in the ribs. He warns that he is not a test subject, and that the director is just a random researcher. Han Ki-cheol spits a massive amount of blood from the strike. He flies back from the heavy impact. Geo says that now he will destroy all the laboratories. He prepares another punch, and he strikes the back of the director's neck. Han Ki-cheol groans in pain, but Geo keeps hitting him without stopping and without mercy, just like he suffered in the past. He grabs Han Ki-cheol by the hair. The director smiles and tells him to hit more. He says that this will not change anything. He knows Geo will not finish him off, and that if his goal is Lim Narin, he should have broken his spine right now. The director says that if he dies, Geo will never find his friends. That is why he cannot end his life. He warns that the transport was delayed by 30 minutes, and since communication is down, the army will arrive soon. Then he calls out to Geo again. He says that if Geo is angry, he can hit him as much as he wants for 10 minutes. But Geo lands a direct punch to his mouth. He pulls the blood flowing from the director's mouth. Han Ki-cheol cannot understand what is happening. He tells Geo to stop, while Geo stares at him coldly. Geo comments on his heartbeat. He says the guy tries to look calm, but his heart shows the truth. When Geo takes the blood, he can feel the rhythm of the heart, and he instantly discovers if the person is lying. Geo explains that half of what he said was a lie since the part about the army arriving soon was true, but it was a lie that he would not get the information about his friends if the director died. His heartbeat says it all. Han Ki-cheol starts laughing. He warns him not to bluff and says his ability does not do that, because his heart merely regenerates. But the protagonist grabs his collar, ripping off a piece of his badge right after. He points out that the man is terrified right now. Terrified that he would find the memory card hidden inside the researcher badge, the card that holds all the research data. Han Ki-cheol tries to take it back but takes a heavy blow. He is thrown away with brutal ease. The man gets up even angrier. He charges again and yells that no one can touch that. Geo keeps beating him relentlessly. He finishes with a heavy punch, which injures the researcher even more. Geo says he remembers him stating that all the data was in the badge and that it was the most precious thing in his life. His heartbeat proves it. Han Ki-cheol knows he is screwed if he loses that. He reminds himself he cannot let that happen. He remembers when he was a child in the lab. A voice states that his parents lost their lives in an accident. His ability manifested, but it was extremely weak, and his control was terrible. That is why he was classified as rank F. The order was simply to remove his heart and send it to the materials room. Everyone starts talking about it and the boy gets scared. Han Ki-cheol begs them to wait because he can be useful. He says he is good at analyzing things and can help with the data. The doctor asks if he has anything else to show. Han Ki-cheol hands over a document and says he analyzed the abilities of all the other children, even those who tried to hide their powers. He explains that the heart of one boy lets him move small pieces of metal, and that the heart of a girl can corrode walls, and they were planning to escape in secret. One of the children headbutts him. The boy runs toward him and says they promise to run away together, but the doctor strikes everyone down and steps forward. The children fall to the ground in that instant. The doctor asks again if he is good at analysis. He notes that there is a lot of useless information there, but the idea was quite clever for a child, so he decides to take him to test if he is actually useful. He warns that the boy must prove his worth immediately. Back in the present, Geo mentions he heard other researchers talking about his past. He says the researcher was also thrown into the lab just like everyone else. Han Ki-cheol screams and curses him for knowing his past. Then the protagonist starts breaking the memory card right in front of him. The researcher falls to his knees and says he will give him anything he wants. Geo orders him to write down the location of the other children and the list of captives along with the transport routes. Han Ki-cheol agrees instantly and grabs a pen. Geo commands him to speak out loud while writing because he will listen to his heart, and the man starts to obey. The researcher just thinks that reinforcements will arrive soon, and he only needs to stall until then. He decides to write as fast as he can, but the protagonist tells him not to build false hope. Backup is not coming because the police have blocked all roads and he is trapped there until everything is over. Han Ki-cheol starts shaking instantly. He wonders if they will steal all his data. Geo has no intention of letting the guy walk away and only wants to destroy everything he has. At this point, the lab itself will also discard him. Nothing else matters, and the files on the memory card are the only thing of value now. If he manages to escape with it, he will survive without going to jail. So he decides to release the chains very slowly so no one notices. But multiple thorns strike the chain right after. Geo looks to the side instantly. Han Ki-cheol is left badly wounded, and Lim Narin says her head is hurting. She wants to know what the bastard put in the water. Han Ki-cheol thinks he gave her sleeping pills, but she is already awake and he realizes he needs to run now, or he will never get another chance. glance, but his arms are also pierced. She warns him that he needs to pay for everything he has done. She says he has no idea how much anger she feels seeing his face, and that any memory makes her furious. Gio looks at her in surprise. Meanwhile, the girl continues to control the thorns, and she pierces his eye without mercy. She tells him to put some clothes on while doing his research. The doctor is riddled with holes from head to toe. She mentions that the whole situation is irritating. Gio grabs her arm right after, but the girl's thorns fly straight at him. He dodges by moving his head. Meanwhile, she asks who had the nerve to interfere. The protagonist asks her not to kill the guy because he has a lot of good information they can use. The girl looks at him a bit suspiciously, but she says she almost made a mistake in front of the person who saved her life. She explains she had no intention of killing the doctor anyway. Then she asks if his name is Kim Gio. She says she has a friend with that name who has a healing ability, and Gio confirms it is really him. The girl does not understand how the guy in the skull mask can be him because the friend she knows is terrified of Hanki Cheol. She calls him a liar for trying to trick her like that. Gio swears he is not lying and confesses that in the past he really was weak and immature. He insists he is actually Gio and calls the girl by her name. Elsewhere, Hyun starts listening to the reports, and Gio also gets on the line to report the situation. He tests to see if the radio works, and Hyun tells him to speak normally. He says he secured Hanki Cheol and got the data for all the children. Hyun says this is great and that they will clear the road right after. She also asks about Lim Na-rin. Gio confirms he managed to rescue her too, but he warns that there is a slight problem now. The girl simply refuses to leave his side.